Chapter 3201. Yes, that's the way to slap his face. Let him deeply understand that our Hall of the Exalted is not a place where he can behave atrociously. The surrounding disciples were all waiting to watch a good show. However, just as the woman in green's slap was about to land on Madman's face, Madman suddenly grinned and raised his arm like lightning, grabbing the woman in green's wrist. With your cultivation, you think you can catch me? The woman in green was disdainful, but when she tried to break free, she was immediately dumbfounded. The other party's big hand was like a steel clamp, grabbing her wrist. Not to mention breaking free, she couldn't even move. Hee hee. Madman grinned and laughed nonstop. The woman in green looked up and found that Madman's face was full of playfulness. Little girl, you're too arrogant. You want to slap my face in front of everyone. Madman opened his mouth and the ridicule on his face became even stronger. His 5 fingers slightly exerted force, and the woman in green's wrist suddenly felt a shattering pain. What's going on? The surrounding disciples looked at this scene with a look of surprise. One was at the small success immortal realm, and the other was at the great perfection immortal realm. There was a difference of 3 small realms, but she couldn't compare to the other party? Pain. The woman in green's face began to turn pale. Because Madman's strength was increasing, the bones in her wrist began to crack and drop of blood flowed out. Mo Wuhui, quickly stop. Zhao Xiaojin was burning with anxiety. This guy was indeed pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. However, Madman turned a deaf ear and stared at the woman in green. He smiled and said, "What? Great Elder's granddaughter only has this much strength? It seems that this Hall of the Exalted is indeed not much. Anyone can enter. Let go of me." The woman in green was ashamed and angry. "Then beg me." Madman looked at her teasingly. "In your dreams." The woman in green was also very stubborn. "Alright, I'd like to see how long you can hold on for." Madman chuckled and increased the strength of his hand. Gotcha. The woman in green's wrist suddenly cracked and blood gushed out. The intense pain made her face as pale as paper. Let go of her. But at this moment, a white-robed young man broke through the air like a bolt of lightning and landed outside the barrier. His eyes were filled with anger. It's Muziu. He's older than Yi Tian, and he's a half-step sovereign. I heard that he has already grasped 3 types of laws, and he has even comprehended the 5th profundity of the laws of darkness. That's not the important point. The important point is that this person has always been secretly in love with the Great Elder's granddaughter. People were discussing in low voices. Madman heard everything and looked at Muziu. He teased, "You want to play the hero and save the beauty? What's wrong with bullying a woman? Come at me if you dare. I'll let you have 3 rounds first." Muziu coldly looked at Madman. Haha. Madman laughed and sent the green-clothed woman flying with a palm strike. He turned around and said to Muziu, "Then come." "Sister Dandan, are you all right?" Zhao Xiaojin ran up to the green-clothed woman and asked with concern. "I'm fine." The green-clothed woman shook her head and stared at the madman while cursing him. "Elder, may I enter?" Muziu looked at the red-clothed old man and pointed at the barrier. The red-clothed old man glanced at the arrogant and despotic madman and nodded. "Go in." It was also a good opportunity to teach this kid a lesson. Hearing this, Muziu took a step into the barrier. The laws of darkness roared out like a raging wave, emitting a monstrous aura as it charged at the madman. Half-step ruler. Madman chuckled and released his aura in an instant. What? His aura? He's also a half-step ruler. Everyone's eyes widened in anger. The red-clothed old man and the green-clothed woman were the same. So fast. There was a trace of shock in Zhao Xiaojin's eyes. She guessed that the madman's strength was definitely stronger than before, but she didn't expect that he had already stepped into the half-step ruler realm. In other words, the madman had already comprehended the 5th profundity of a law. This speed was too terrifying, wasn't it? It wasn't inferior to Qin Feiyang at all. At the same time, Muziu's expression also had a trace of shock. Half-step ruler, so what? The madman grinned, and the laws of lightning surged out, surging toward the laws of darkness. Boom. The 2 great laws collided with a loud bang. The 2 immediately took a step back each. It's the laws of lightning. the red-clothed old man muttered. Mu Ziyu's laws of darkness had already comprehended the fifth profundity, and the madman's laws of lightning could compete with Mu Ziyu's laws of darkness. Clearly, the madman had comprehended the fifth profundity of the laws of lightning. They both grasped the laws of lightning, as expected of brothers. There are strong and weak half-step rulers. If there's only one law, then it's undoubtedly the weakest. And now I've grasped 3 laws. After Mu Ziyu calmed down, he smiled disdainfully at the madman, and 3 laws appeared. The first was the laws of darkness. The other 2 were the laws of fire, and the laws of earth. Furthermore, those 2 types of law energies had both reached the second level of profoundness. Are you showing off? The madman was stunned. If you think so, then I won't object. Mu Ziyu smiled proudly and didn't forget to glance at the green-clothed woman, as if to say to her, "Don't worry, I'll definitely avenge you and make him kneel in front of everyone and apologize to you." Showing off your laws in front of me? The madman was stunned. Was this a joke? He didn't dare to say anything else, but in terms of laws, other than Qin Feiyang, no one could catch his eye. Of course, this was only limited to people of the same generation. There was no way to compare with people of the older generation. If you take the initiative to apologize to Miss Dandin now, I can be merciful. Mu Ziyu looked at the madman as if victory was already in his hands. That arrogant attitude made the madman finally unable to hold back and laugh. What is he laughing about? Could it be that he's still not convinced? Isn't this the truth right in front of your eyes? Everyone looked at the madman suspiciously. The green-clothed woman also had a face of disgust. She had never seen such an arrogant person. But the red-clothed old man frowned. Why was he so confident? Could it be that this kid was like Mo Yuan, hiding his strength? Mu Ziyu raised his eyebrows and looked at the madman. Laughing can't hide your current situation. Ha. The madman laughed even more merrily. Mu Ziyu gradually lost his patience. The power of the 3 laws turned into 3 giant dragons and charged at the madman with monstrous might. You want to perform in front of that little girl. That's right. After all, you're all men, so it's understandable. But you've picked the wrong target. Competing with me in terms of laws will only make you more embarrassed. Open your little eyes and watch carefully. My brother isn't the only genius in this world. The madman took a step forward, and the law of thunder rolled out. Following closely, the law of war, law of slaughter, and law of darkness roared out. Moreover, he had already comprehended the 4th profound of the law of slaughter, and the 3rd profound of the law of war. Even for the law of darkness that he had just comprehended some time ago, he had already comprehended the 2nd profound. Boom! The 4 laws were like 4 giant dragons as they roared in all directions and blasted towards Mu Ziyu's law. Whether it was quantity or quality, the madman surpassed Mu Ziyu. There was no suspense. Mu Ziyu's law was shattered on the spot as his entire body flew out with blood flowing out. He actually grasped 4 types of law. Not to mention the other disciples. Even the woman in green couldn't remain calm. What's the big deal about 4 types of law? The madman smiled proudly as a sacred light emerged. This was the law of light. What? 5 types of law? Everyone was dumbfounded. Inside the cave, sensing the madman's law of light, Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. What's going on? When did this guy comprehend the law of light? Could it be that what he inherited from the temple was the law of light? Wait a minute. It shouldn't be. If it was the law of light, there was no need for the madman to hide it from them, because the law of light couldn't be considered the strongest law of light. Xiaoxian, when did senior brother madman comprehend the law of light? Qin Feiyang couldn't figure it out, and sent a voice transmission to Zhua Xiaoxian. He comprehended the law of light after the exchange. And he's not the only one. The others have benefited greatly too. For example, I've comprehended the law of water. However, sister-in-law is the most impressive one. She has comprehended 2 types of law. Together with her original law of life, she now has 3 types of law. Zhua Xiaoxian explained. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. It seemed like the exchange was quite useful after all. In other words, basically everyone has mastered more than 2 types of law? Qin Feiyang asked. That's right. Qin monarch and Yang monarch have also comprehended 2 types of law after leaving, but I don't know what they are. Zhuo Xiaoxian replied. Not bad, it seems like the exchange will be held more often in the future, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. He was quite satisfied with the outcome. He then said, Senior brother Madman has been hiding the law of light. Do you know what it is? I don't know. I've asked him, but he refused to tell me. He said he would definitely give us a surprise in the future. However, I do know one thing. It seems like he has comprehended the 4th profound of the law of light. Zhuo Xiaoxian's tone was filled with a hint of dissatisfaction. What? The 4th profound? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The 5th profound of the law of thunder, the 4th profound of the law of slaughter, and the 4th profound of the law of light. Overall, senior brother Madman had surpassed him. Apart from the law of thunder, he had only comprehended the 4th profound of the law of causality. The rest of the laws were only at the 3rd profound. It seemed like he had to work harder. Outside, the place fell into a dead silence. Everyone stared at Madman in astonishment. 5 types of law of light. This was another monster. Even Zhao Xiaojin, who was familiar with Qin Feiyang and Madman, could not help but exclaim in his heart. One Qin Feiyang was already enough. Now, another Madman had appeared. How were the others supposed to live? Chapter 3202. So what if he has 5 types of laws? He still can't compare to his younger brother, Mo Yuanyuan. After all, Mo Yuanyuan has mastered 7 types of laws. Someone said sourly. This was obviously envy, jealousy, and hatred. Madman laughed. My brother is indeed powerful, but do you really think that I have mastered 5 types of laws? What? Listening to what he said, he is still hiding the power of laws. Everyone was surprised. Could it be that he was the same as Mo Yuanyuan, and also mastered 7 types of laws? Is there a hidden law or not? I have no comment. But even so, my 5 types of laws are enough to kill all of you so-called monstrous geniuses. Madman looked at everyone with disdain, and no one refuted. Because this was the truth. The strongest disciple in the Hall of the Exalted was a small stage dominator. And a small stage dominator could at most master 3 or 4 types of laws. The most important thing was that this person was young. His future achievements would definitely be higher. Still want to fight? Madman glanced at Mu Ziyu, his eyes full of playfulness. Mu Ziyu's pupils shrank. He was afraid. Madman's strength was in front of him, and he had far surpassed him. And there was also Qin Feiyang. Not to mention the talent of these 2. Even if Mo Yuanyuan had the vice leader behind him, if these 2 held a grudge because of today's matter, wouldn't it be easy for them to target him in the future? But if he were to admit defeat now, what about his face? He would definitely be laughed at. The most important thing was that the green-clothed woman was still here. If he were to admit defeat, she would definitely look down on him in the future, not to mention capturing her heart. Now he was riding a tiger and couldn't get off. It was hard to choose. Madman, of course, could see Mu Ziyu's current mood. He grinned. Just treat it as a spar, there is no winner or loser. And Mu Ziyu was taken aback. Was he giving him a way out? Madman looked at him indifferently. That gaze was very obvious. Be tactful and don't embarrass yourself. Go down the stairs. Mu Ziyu looked at Madman gratefully before turning around and leaving without looking back. Although the 2 ended up reconciling, anyone with a discerning eye knew that Madman was deliberately giving Mu Ziyu a way out. So in the future, Mu Ziyu would definitely be talked about. Mu Ziyu was also clear about this point. However, compared to being humiliated in public and even losing his life, this was nothing. This place is really boring, I'd better leave. Madman glanced at the Hall of the Exalted, shook his head and left. Wait. Suddenly, the red-clothed old madman's voice sounded. Madman, madman. Madman frowned and said, but I heard that to enter the Hall of the Exalted, one has to pass a trial, and the trial grounds, Madman said. The red-clothed old man chuckled. You can do that? Madman was stunned, but at the same time, he looked around with a trace of suspicion in his eyes. Why hadn't the big shots of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance appeared yet? Could it be that his talent wasn't enough to attract these people? That's right. He had done this in order to attract the attention of the authorities. However, not a single one of them had shown up. Forget it. I'm really not interested in the Hall of the Exalted, especially those arrogant people who claim to be geniuses. Just looking at them makes me annoyed. Madman pretended to hesitate for a while and shook his head. Who are you talking about? The green-clothed woman glared at him. Isn't it obvious? I'm talking about all the disciples in the Hall of the Exalted. Of course, except for my brother. Madman chuckled. Bastard. Even if his talent is amazing, you can't say that about everyone. Who can make a move and teach him a lesson? Someone shouted. However, no one made a move. There were a few low-stage sovereigns in the crowd. With their cultivation, they were confident in fighting with Madman, but they didn't make a move. Because the higher one's cultivation, the smarter one was. Madman's talent had been revealed. His future was limitless and might even surpass them. As for Qin Feiyang, there was even less of a need. Not only was his talent amazing, but he was also the disciple of the Vice Alliance leader. Thus, these two brothers weren't people they could provoke. Don't send me off. Madman waved his hand without turning his head and left. He was deliberately provoking the big shots. But even so, none of the big shots showed up. Could it be that the talent he displayed wasn't enough to attract them? If that was the case, then wouldn't he have wasted so much time? No. He had to get his hands on a legendary heaven-defying treasure. Before I leave, I'll give all of you so-called monstrous geniuses a big gift. Madman suddenly stopped and said without turning his head. Big gift? What do you mean? Everyone was puzzled. Boom. A monstrous aura suddenly rushed out of Madman's body. This aura contained a terrifying aura of death. At this moment, he was like a god of death that had returned. The fourth profound of the law of death, god of death's descent. Just as everyone was bewildered, Madman's voice sounded again. The law of death. Everyone present was shocked. They quickly looked up and saw a gray power of law rushing out of Madman's body. The aura of death grew stronger and shrouded the entire Hall of the Exalted. Everyone couldn't help but tremble. It felt as if they had fallen into the abyss of hell. An unresolvable fear emerged uncontrollably from the depths of their hearts. Boom. Accompanied by a loud sound, a statue of the god of death appeared above Madman's head. The statue was wearing a black robe and black fog surged around it. It held a pitch-black giant scythe in its hand that emitted a dazzling light. The fourth profound of the law of death. The red-clothed old man was dumbfounded. This was one of the strongest laws in the world. Not only did this kid master the law of death, but he had also comprehended the fourth profound. The strongest law. Anyone who grasped an ultimate law would become an overlord in the future, no matter how weak they were. No. This kid must stay in the Hall of the Exalted. He was the same as Mo Wuyuan. They were both existences that could change the fate of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. This gift is not to show off, but to remind you that there is always someone better. Don't think that you are a genius just because you have some talent. You will only be laughed at. Madman laughed and waved his hand. The god of death swung the giant scythe in its hand and charged toward the Hall of the Exalted Disciples. Retreat. The imperishable realm disciples hurriedly fled in fear. At the same time, a Dominator Realm disciple stepped forward and activated the fourth profound of the Law of Gold to attack the god of death. With a loud rumble, the fourth profundity of the Law of Metal was shattered without any suspense. They are both using the fourth profound, but the difference is too big. Yet it's a complete suppression. Is this the power of the strongest law? It is indeed terrifying. Everyone was shocked. The Dominator Realm disciple who attacked was also shocked. He had long heard that the strongest laws were stronger than other laws. Now that he had seen it, it was indeed so. Boom. He activated the fifth profound of the Law of Gold and charged toward the god of death. At this moment, only then did the Grim Reaper statue dissipate. Strong. If only I could comprehend an ultimate law. Everyone had a look of envy. That's it then, goodbye. Madman smiled proudly and took another step forward. Wait. The old man in red hurriedly shouted and immediately rushed in front of Madman. What else do you want? Madman frowned. You can't leave. The old man in red shook his head. Can't leave. What kind of logic is this? Madman was stunned. The old man in red did not answer. He looked at the peak of the Deacon Hall and said, Everyone, how long are you going to stay here? It's time to come out. Madman looked up and saw 11 figures at the peak of the mountain. They were the vice leader, the Hall of Famers and the 9 elders. At this moment, they were all shocked and could not recover for a long time. Mo Wuyuan had mastered the strongest law, the law of cause and effect. And Mo Wuhui had also mastered the strongest law, the law of death. What kind of monsters were these brothers? It was fine if it was just one monster, but both of them were so monstrous. That's right. They had arrived a long time ago. They had been hiding their aura and observing Madman. And just as Madman had guessed, the 5 types of laws were not enough to enter their eyes, because there was already a Qin Feiyang in front of them. 7 types of laws, including the law of cause and effect. So in comparison, the 5 types of laws that Madman had displayed before were nothing. Of course, if there was no Qin Feiyang in front of them, even if Madman did not reveal the law of death, it would be enough to cause a commotion. But now it was different. The law of death was the strongest law in the world. And this child had already comprehended the 4th profound. He was only 1 step away from the 5th profound. And in addition to the law of death, this child's law of slaughter had also comprehended the 4th profound. In other words, as long as he worked hard, he would soon step into the early stage dominator realm. And in some aspects, this person was better than Qin Feiyang. Because Qin Feiyang had only comprehended the law of cause and effect to the 4th profound. What are you guys still standing there for? The old man in red roared. Finally, all the big shots quivered and immediately rushed over, surrounding the madman. Madman looked at these people in astonishment and frowned. Are you guys planning to gang up on me? Hearing this, the vice leader and the others' mouths twitched. With your monstrous talent, who would be willing to gang up on you? Mo Wuhui, right? The Hall of Famers looked at Madman with a smile. What do you want? Let me tell you, I have no interest in men, especially an old man like you. Madman covered his chest with both hands and stared at the Hall of Famers vigilantly. Hearing this, the Hall of Famers' face turned black. Is this kid sick? What is he thinking? Chapter 3203. How could Frenzy not know what these people wanted to do? But he just had to play dumb. Previously, they didn't show up, but now that he showed the law of death, they all came out one by one. How could they let him stay in the Hall of Famers? Mo Wuhui, your brother has become my personal disciple. You should know that, right? The vice leader chuckled. I know. Frenzy nodded. Old man Yi, what are you trying to do? It's not enough to have a Mo Wuhui, and you still want to snatch him? Let me tell you, one must know how to be content. The palace master of the Hall of the Exalted glared at the deputy alliance master. This is because I cherish talents. The vice leader chuckled. Don't say such high-sounding words to this old man. Anyway, others are qualified to snatch him, but you are not. The Hall of Famers snorted. You have to make your words clear. I am the vice leader of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. How can I not be qualified? The vice leader was also angry. Because you already have a disciple. Why are you still snatching him? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? The Hall of Famers said angrily. Laughed at? That doesn't exist. If those brothers become my disciples, I don't know how many people will be envious. The vice leader smiled faintly. Shameless. The Hall of Famers' face was full of contempt. Cough cough. That can we really snatch him? At this time the great elder spoke. The other elders also looked at the Hall of Famers expectantly. The Hall of Famers heard this and glared fiercely. Look at this old man's eyes. Can you understand? The 9 of them smiled bitterly. They knew it had nothing to do with them. Mo Wuhui, this old man doesn't like to beat around the bush. Come and be my disciple. This old man has mastered the law of time. If you follow this old man will teach you everything. One day, when you comprehend the law of time, you will have mastered the 2 strongest laws. The Hall of Famers took the lead in tempting him. Law of time? Frenzy was slightly stunned and suddenly couldn't help but be tempted. Everyone knew that experience was the most important thing. Even if he didn't need it, it could still help the Fire Lotus, because the Fire Lotus had grasped the law of time. If he could get an explanation and experience about the laws of time, it would definitely be of great use to the Fire Lotus. Mo Wuhui, you can't be too greedy when it comes to the laws of death. It's already very impressive that you could fully comprehend the laws of death. This is something that I can help you with. The vice leader smiled confidently. Help me? Madman was stunned. That's right. To tell you the truth, I've also mastered the law of death. The vice leader said in a low voice. What? Madman was shocked. This old thing actually grasped death law. Don't listen to him. You can't be greedy. That's only for ordinary people. With your talent, you don't need to consider such things at all. Besides, no matter how powerful the laws of death are, how can they be more practical than the laws of time? Look at this Hall of Fame. If it wasn't for this old man using the laws of time to set up the time array, how could these disciples improve so quickly? So in terms of merit, in terms of contribution to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, this old man is much more than some old things. The Hall of Famers smiled proudly. That's true. Madman nodded. I'm really envious. Yeah. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance has been established for so many years, but this is the first time I've seen such a scene. The Vice Leader and the Hall Master are fighting to take in disciples, and the Great Elder and the rest obviously have the same idea. Unfortunately, in front of the Vice Leader and the Hall Master, they can only stand aside. The surrounding disciples looked at Madman with envy. This was a kind of glory. Although the Vice Leader and the Hall of Famers had also fought over Qin Feiyang, they didn't know about it, so this was the first time they saw such a scene. At the same time, the Vice Leader stared at Madman and said, "What's right? The time array is indeed more practical, but is it useful when facing the enemy? When facing the enemy, it's still necessary to have a powerful method. As for the law of death, you've already comprehended the fourth profound. I believe you don't need me to tell you how powerful it is. It's much stronger than the law of time." After the Vice Leader finished speaking, he didn't forget to look at the Hall of Famers with disdain. What? Much stronger than the law of time? Old Man Yi, I'm not convinced by your words. Why don't we go to the fighting arena and see who's stronger? The Hall of Famers said with a cold face. Sure, I'm not afraid of you. The Vice Leader sneered. Then let's go. The Hall of Famers shouted. The Great Elder hurriedly went forward and persuaded them. I say, the two of you, there are so many disciples watching. Can you not be so embarrassing? The two of them were slightly stunned. They looked at the surrounding disciples and shouted in unison. What are you looking at? Do you think you can compare with Mo Wuyuan and Mo Wuhui? Hurry up and go cultivate. The group of disciples shrank their necks and immediately turned to flee. But in their hearts, they felt wronged. If you want to fight, then fight. Why are you venting your anger on us? Disciples also have human rights, okay? The Great Elder shook his head and sighed. The two of you should stop fighting. First ask Mo Wuhui's opinion. Because until now, he hasn't said that he wants to be your disciple. The two of them were stunned and immediately looked at Frenzy at the same time. Frenzy's eyes flashed and he said with a smile, I'm really not interested in being your personal disciple. Goodbye. The two of them froze. The Great Elder and the others were also stunned. Not interested. You can't leave. When they came back to their senses, the old man in red immediately stopped Frenzy. Elder, what do you mean? If I don't agree today, I won't be able to leave the hall? Frenzy raised his eyebrows. Don't be angry, don't be angry. It's a good thing that the Vice Leader and the Hall Master want you as their disciple. Think about it, if you agree, then in the future, won't you be able to do whatever you want? Let's talk about it later. Your younger brother has already become the Vice Leader's disciple. Whether it is resources or connections, he is now stronger than you. So if no one helps you, then your younger brother will surpass you sooner or later. The old man in red pulled Frenzy to the side and whispered. That seems to make sense. Frenzy nodded. What do you mean it seems to make sense? The old man in red rolled his eyes at him. Then give me a suggestion. Who should I choose? Frenzy asked softly. In terms of selfishness, I definitely want you to choose my big brother. After all, your younger brother is already the vice leader's disciple. Then my big brother can't be left out. And I also understand my big brother. Even if you two choose the vice leader, he won't take his anger out on you, but his self-esteem will definitely be hurt. But I still have to respect your choice. I just hope that our rogue cultivator alliance can develop in a balanced manner. The old man in red smiled. The so-called balance was actually hinting at the vice leader and the Hall of Famers. If Qin Feiyang and Frenzy both became the vice leader's disciples, then this balance would no longer exist. Moreover, the future achievements of the two would definitely not be low. At that time, the vice leader could rely on his two disciples, Qin Feiyang and Frenzy, to suppress the Hall of Famers. This was not what the old man in red wanted to see. Although he knew that his big brother was not interested in things like power, as his younger brother, he definitely had to think more about it. In short, he couldn't let the vice leader dominate. That makes sense. Frenzy pondered for a while, then turned his head to look at the vice leader and the Hall of Famers and said, I agree, but I heard that my brother got a lot of treasures from your hands. Why can't you favor one and discriminate against the other? This was his ultimate goal. When the two heard this, they were stunned. If you don't give it to me, then it means that you look down on me. If you look down on me, then why would I ask for trouble and run to become your disciple? Frenzy pursed his lips. This is a small matter. As long as you agree, this old man will immediately give it to you. The Hall of the Exalted Lord was the first to express his stance. He took out a long iron box and two palm-sized jade boxes. Frenzy's eyes suddenly lit up as he nodded and said, Then it's decided. Master, please take care of me in the future. The Hall of Famers smiled. The vice leader was stunned. He agreed just like that? He hadn't expressed his opinion yet. The Hall of Famers looked at the vice leader and smiled proudly. Old man Yi, if you continue to poach him now, then you really won't be honest. The vice leader's face darkened. Originally, he really wanted to fight for it, but when he heard this, he was at his wit's end. Because it was true. Frenzy had already agreed. If he continued to poach him, then it would mean that he wasn't a good person. At that time, not only the Hall of Famers, but even the elders would despise him. What a pity. Why didn't he rush to express his opinion in front of the Hall of Famers? He missed such a monstrous disciple just like that. You're good enough. You have a Mo Fengyuan and I have a Mo Wuhui. It's the best of both worlds. Besides, if a Mo Wuhui really follows you, do you have the energy to teach so many people? Don't forget, you still have a grandson. The Hall of Famers said. All right. Stop nagging. I didn't say that I would continue to poach him. The vice leader glared at the Hall of Famers, then looked at Frenzy and smiled. You brothers are the future pillars of our rogue cultivator alliance. Work hard. Although you didn't become my disciple, if there's anything you don't understand in the future, you can always ask me. Okay. Frenzy nodded. Then that's it. Dismissed. The vice leader waved his hand and turned to leave. The 9 elders looked at the Hall of Famers enviously, and also turned to leave. When would they be able to find such an outstanding disciple? After the Hall of Famers watched the vice leader and the 9 elders leave, he looked at Frenzy and smiled. Kid, you have good taste. If you follow me, I guarantee that your future will be worry-free. That's secondary. I'm really interested in the law of time. Why don't you explain it to me now? Frenzy put away the metal box and the 2 jade boxes and asked sneakily. Sure. Let's go. The Hall of Famers chuckled and brought Frenzy to the square where the exit of the trial grounds was. Chapter 3204. As expected of blood brothers, they have hidden it so well. The green-robed woman stood in front of the cave and looked at the back of Madman. She then looked at the 3rd cave, her eyes filled with indignation. Sister Dandan, why do I feel that you seem to be prejudiced against them? They don't seem to have done anything to you. Zhao Xiaojin looked suspiciously at the green-robed woman. Anyway, I just don't like them. The green-robed woman snorted and returned to the cave. Zhao Xiaojin smiled helplessly, glanced at the 3rd cave, and also entered the cave. Black Dragon was also watching the show. After everyone left, he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. What kind of monsters were Mo Yuan and Mo Wuhui? Then, it turned and flew to the front of the cave, looked at Hulwan and said, "You've worked hard." "It's nothing." Hulwan quickly smiled. "All right then, I'll go in first. You continue to guard and don't let anyone in." With that said, the black dragon entered the cave abode. "What about me?" Hulwan hurriedly asked. "Don't worry, I remember everything. I'll help you ask Mo Yuan later." Black Dragon smiled without looking back. After entering the cave, he saw Qin Feiyang sitting alone in front of the tea table with his head lowered in contemplation. "What are you thinking about?" Black Dragon waved his claws and set up a barrier around the cave as he looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Cough cough. "I'm thinking about this big brother of mine. He actually mastered the law of death." Qin Feiyang's expression was also filled with shock. "Aren't you blood brothers? How come you don't even know his law of death?" Black Dragon was stunned and looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang. "I've asked him before, but he has always been mysterious. If he wasn't forced to reveal it this time, I don't know how long he would hide it from me." Qin Feiyang gritted his teeth and said. "Forced to?" Black Dragon was stunned and said in surprise. Could it be that he deliberately revealed it? In order to obtain those heaven-defying treasures from the Hall of Famers? And Qin Feiyang nodded. "You two brothers are really cunning." Black Dragon shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Same here." Qin Feiyang chuckled. "Speaking of which, what should we do with the fire yuan?" Black Dragon asked. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said, "Let it in." "All right." The Black Dragon nodded. With a wave of its claw, the enchantment dissipated. It said to the door, "Brother Hulwan, come in quickly." Whoosh. Hulwan immediately ran in. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. "Don't be so excited. I don't have a way to make your bloodline reach ancestral awakening yet." "No way." Hulwan was stunned. "That's right. I don't want to hide it from you. I really have no choice. So now you have two paths. First, you continue to follow me. I'll think of something. Second, leave. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance is not a place where you ferocious beasts can stay for long. It's best if you all leave." Qin Feiyang smiled. "You're quite honest." Hulwan looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. "I've always been very sincere to ferocious beasts because there are many ferocious beasts around me, and even divine beasts. So I understand you. Although you're ferocious by nature, you're also straightforward. As long as you recognize a friend, you'll never betray them." Qin Feiyang smiled. Even the Black Dragon was a little surprised by these words. It didn't expect this human to know so much about them. Hulwan asked, "What kind of divine beasts do you have around you?" "Many. 5-clawed golden dragon, blood kirin, and white jade kirin. I also know a hellhound and a fire kirin. Of course, there's also Brother Black Dragon." Qin Feiyang smiled. "So many?" Hulwan was surprised. "I've seen divine beasts before, so naturally there are more. You might not know, but I've seen a whole group of dragons before. There are countless mystical dragons in the dragon clan, such as black dragons, white dragons, golden dragons, silver dragons, and so on." Qin Feiyang said. "Dragons?" Not only Hulwan, but even the Black Dragon was shocked. "Haven't you heard of dragons?" Qin Feiyang looked at them suspiciously. "No." The two beasts shook their heads. Qin Feiyang frowned without leaving a trace. Were there really no dragons in the Sky Cloud realm? But that's not right. There were dragons in the ancient realm, so why weren't there any in the Sky Cloud realm? Could it be that dragons were born in the ancient realm? But this didn't make sense, because there was also the Ice Dragon. Now that the situation was confirmed, the Ice Dragon should be in the Sky Cloud realm. Since the Ice Dragon was in the Sky Cloud realm, there should be dragons in the Sky Cloud realm. What the hell was going on? Also, the Celestial Dragon God Sword and the Ice Dragon Sacred Sword, the two sovereign divine weapons, had now appeared in the Blood Hall. Then would the dragons, revered dragon, and princess dragons also be in the Blood Hall? Blood Hall. It seemed that he had to find an opportunity to investigate this situation. Shaking his head, Qin Feiyang looked at Hulwan and said with a smile, "I won't force you. You decide. You don't have to worry because no matter what decision you make, it won't affect our relationship. This, Huoluan was hesitant. There was no other way. Logically speaking, there was no need to continue staying here. However, this person was able to transform the black dragon, which meant that his ability was certain. Maybe he could find a way in the future? If he left like this, wouldn't he miss this opportunity? Why not stay and see the situation first? Huoluan pondered for a while and finally made a decision. How about this? I'll follow you first. If there's no other way, I'll leave. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. As long as Huoluan stayed, he had a way to make Fire Lotus not leave in the future. Just as the Black Dragon said, Huoluan was a paragon sovereign. Keeping it by his side would definitely be of great use. Now, go and send the other beasts out, lest they become the thugs of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Qin Feiyang said. The other beasts weren't weak either. If they continued to stay in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, they would become a member sooner or later. This wouldn't be good for him in the future. Old brother Mo, from what you said, why do I feel that you don't like the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? The Black Dragon looked at him suspiciously. Because if it were other members of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, they would be more than happy to have them stay. After all, they could strengthen the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. It's not that I don't like the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. I just don't want them to become cannon fodder for the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Qin Feiyang smiled. So that's how it is. This emperor didn't misjudge you. You're a pretty good human. The Black Dragon laughed. You flatter me. I'm just putting myself in their shoes. Beasts also have life and dignity. Why should they become cannon fodder for a human? Qin Feiyang said. The Black Dragon and Huoluan looked at each other. If they hadn't seen with their own eyes that this person was a human, they would have suspected if this person was a beast. Go. Qin Feiyang smiled. Okay. The two beasts turned and rushed out of the cave, disappearing at lightning speed. Qin Feiyang also followed behind the entrance of the cave, setting up a lightning barrier. Then he entered the Black Tortoise world, and stood in front of the ancient castle with a thoughtful look. Ancient castle, where are the Black Dragon's heavenly tribulations? After a while, he asked. At that time, the Black Dragon's heavenly tribulations had all disappeared in the ancient castle. No one would believe that they had disappeared from the world. Therefore, they should be hidden somewhere in the ancient castle. In a cultivation room on the second floor. These heavenly tribulations are very powerful. Don't mess around. The voice of the ancient castle sounded. Qin Feiyang immediately closed his eyes. Soon, he found the missing heavenly tribulations in a cultivation room on the second floor. But now there were only 8 heavenly tribulations inside. Each of them emitted a terrifying aura. If it wasn't for the stone door of the cultivation room, the entire Black Tortoise world would be finished. That's not right. Why are there only 8 heavenly tribulations? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. He clearly remembered that when he comprehended the 5th profound, all the heavenly tribulations disappeared in the ancient castle. Although he didn't pay much attention to it, there should be at least 80 to 90 heavenly tribulations. I merged all the heavenly tribulations together, and then divided them into 8. Now, I have good control over the power of these 8 heavenly tribulations. Each of them is enough to instantly kill a perfect sovereign. This is specially prepared for you. Otherwise, when you meet such a powerful enemy in the future, you won't have the power to fight back. The ancient castle said. Each of them can instantly kill a perfect sovereign? Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. That's right. But the opponent must be unprepared and be caught off guard. If the opponent is well prepared, they will at most be seriously injured. The ancient castle said. That's still very powerful. Qin Feiyang exclaimed. This meant that he had 8 trump cards. Although it was only a one-time use, he was satisfied. After all, he could seriously injure a perfect sovereign. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and asked, then if I change these 8 heavenly tribulations into one, how powerful will it be? Then it will definitely be stronger. Even if a perfect sovereign is protected by a supreme heaven-defying divine artifact, it will still be able to instantly kill him. However, if you want to use it to deal with a sovereign weapon, it's still far from enough. The ancient castle said. I know that. Qin Feiyang nodded. If the power of this heavenly tribulation was comparable to a sovereign weapon, the ancient castle wouldn't be able to block it at all, let alone being sealed in the cultivation room. In any case, this is just a precautionary measure. You have to rely on yourself for everything. Becoming stronger is your greatest capital, the ancient castle warned. What it meant was that Qin Feiyang shouldn't rely too much on these external things. Understood. Qin Feiyang nodded and then asked, Did you already know that senior brother Frenzy grasped the law of death? Of course. He was cultivating in seclusion in my body. How could I not know? The ancient castle said. Then why didn't you tell me? Qin Feiyang wasn't satisfied. We respect the privacy of others. The ancient castle said indifferently. You should know about the white-eyed wolf situation, right? Qin Feiyang asked. The ancient castle responded. All right, I won't ask anymore. Anyway, I will know sooner or later. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. Even if he asked, the ancient castle wouldn't tell him. Why waste his breath? Next, he entered the cultivation room and began to ponder about the karma law and the other 5 laws. Chapter 3205. A large number of beasts leaving the Rogue Cultivator Alliance would naturally cause a commotion. However, with Black Dragon and Fire Luan around, no one dared to stop them. For the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, the other beasts weren't important. Even Fire Luan didn't matter. The most important thing was that Black Dragon didn't leave. After all, a divine beast was still very meaningful to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. After sending away all the beasts, Black Dragon and Fire Luan didn't immediately return to the Hall of the Famers. Instead, they wandered around the Azure Wave Snow Mountain, because the Azure Wave Snow Mountain was still very unfamiliar to them. 2 days later, Madman finally returned to the Hall of the Famers. After entering the Black Tortoise realm, he immediately found Fire Lotus and told her everything about the time law he got from the Fire Lotus. This was undoubtedly a good fortune for Fire Lotus, so she was very grateful to Madman and immediately went into seclusion. 2 days outside and 2,000 years have passed here. How's your comprehension of the law? Hall. Madman looked at Qin Feiyang and snickered. Don't be so proud. Isn't it just mastering the death law? I also have the cause and effect law, okay? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Then this daddy has already comprehended the 4th profound of the slaughter law. What about you? Madman chuckled. Qin Feiyang helplessly shook his head and said, There's something we need to discuss. What is it? Madman was suspicious. What is our purpose in coming to the Sky Cloud realm? Qin Feiyang asked. Rescue the Sword Emperor, Mermaid Emperor, Black Wing Emperor, White Wing Emperor, and investigate your ancestors' background. Also, find the small beast and take back Chang Shui. Of course. Revered Dragon naturally won't let it go. Madman said one by one. Yes. But now it's not the same for us to stay in the Eastern continent. So these 2 days I pondered about it. Now that both of us have stepped into the half-step dominator realm, although it's still far from the Blood Hall, it shouldn't be a problem for us to protect ourselves. Why don't we go to the Western continent and take a look? Qin Feiyang asked. This, Madman pondered. This was no child's play. It would be fine if the Blood Hall only had one sovereign divine weapon. But now both of the dragon's sovereign divine weapons were in the Blood Hall. If they really fought, they would be the ones to suffer. Logically speaking, staying in the Eastern continent and keeping a low profile was the wisest choice. When they were all strong enough, who would be afraid of whom? However, if he really had to wait until he broke through to become a Paragon Dominator before going to the Western continent, who knew how long he would have to wait? For now, we don't need to think about our ancestors' past, because they have already gone to look for it themselves. As for Chang Shui, small beast is too strong. We are no match for it. So now, all we can do is go to the Western continent and think of a way to rescue the Sword Emperor and the others. Qin Feiyang said. What about the Eastern continent? Madman asked. We are just passers-by in the Eastern continent. Whether it's the Rogue Cultivator Alliance or the Demonic Hall, they're just a transitional period for us. Qin Feiyang said. You can't say that. To deal with the Blood Hall, our strength is far from enough. So we can still rely on the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demonic Hall when necessary. Madman shook his head. You mean cooperate with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demonic Hall? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes, the enemy of an enemy is a friend. Besides, hasn't the Demonic Hall been looking for us? With the help of the Demonic Hall, it will definitely be much easier to deal with the Blood Hall. As for the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, actually, there is also a possibility of cooperation. And this key point is the Vice Alliance leader. The Vice Alliance leader colluded with the Blood Hall. This is a huge taboo. If we can help the Rogue Cultivator Alliance get rid of the Vice Alliance leader, then we can really turn enemies into friends with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. But before that, we have to investigate this alliance leader. If he also colludes with the Blood Hall, then our situation won't be good. Madman said. I think so too. But now we don't even know where the alliance leader is. How can we investigate? Qin Feiyang frowned. This matter is really a little strange. Madman rubbed his forehead. Why is it strange? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. To tell you the truth, I have been with the Hall of Famers for the past 2 days. In fact, I have already indirectly asked him about the alliance leader's situation. But guess who he found out about it? He actually doesn't know where the alliance leader is. He even said that he couldn't contact the alliance leader thousands of years ago. Madman said. It can't be. Qin Feiyang had a look of surprise. If it was said that ordinary members of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance couldn't contact the alliance leader, then it would be reasonable. But the Hall of Famers was the top 3 in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. His position was second only to the alliance leader. How could he not be able to contact him? Madman asked. Have you asked the Vice Alliance leader? No. I just gained his trust, so I didn't dare to ask too many questions. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Then how about this, you find a chance to ask him. I will also go and ask around. I don't believe that such a large Rogue Cultivator Alliance doesn't have anyone who knows the whereabouts of the alliance leader. Madman said. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded and reminded. However, you can't directly ask around, lest you arouse suspicion. Don't worry, I still know this common sense. Madman smiled proudly. Qin Feiyang smiled. With Madman's ability to do things, he could definitely rest assured. Suddenly, he was stunned and patted his head. How could I forget about it? What? Madman was suspicious. The fire dragon we met in the trial ground. Based on the attitude of Yi Tian and the others, it's obvious that its position in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance isn't ordinary. Maybe it knows something? Qin Feiyang said. Yeah. How could I forget about it? Madman also patted his head hard. When Zhao Xiaojin and I came out of the trial ground, this hall master was extremely reserved in front of the fire dragon. I think its position in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is probably above the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers. Qin Feiyang analyzed. In that case, it might have a direct relationship with the alliance leader? Madman was shocked. That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded and then said. However, I also heard that after it came out of the trial ground, it disappeared without a trace. Where are we going to find it? Nothing in this world is difficult for those who are willing. I will investigate this matter first. One more thing, Zhao Eryong was killed. We have to find another person now. Otherwise, it will be troublesome to leave the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Madman said. I have already thought about this matter. There are a total of 10 people guarding the barrier. We know interrogation officer too. As for the other 9, we are very unfamiliar with them. If we try to persuade them, it will definitely be very troublesome. It might even cause a big mess. Qin Feiyang pondered. Then, you mean we should make a move on interrogation officer 2? Madman asked. No. Interrogation officer 2 is the Vice Alliance leader's confidant. We definitely can't look for him. However, I do have a suitable candidate in mind. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Who? Madman was curious. Zhang Diyuan. That is Zhang Sanbao's father. Now he is already under my control. If he replaces interrogation officer 2 to guard the border, then we don't have to do a lot of things. Qin Feiyang smiled. But this person used to be the city lord of East City. Now that we ask him to guard the border, Will he agree? Madman asked. Do you think he still has a choice? Because of Zhang Sanbao and Zhang Santian, as well as the sneak attack on me last time, the Vice Alliance leader and the other higher-ups are already quite dissatisfied with him. If he doesn't listen to my arrangements, I guarantee that he won't live past tomorrow. As for replacing Interrogation Officer 2, that is even simpler. When the time comes, I will just casually say a few words in front of the Vice Alliance leader, and he will be able to take up the position. Qin Feiyang smiled. All right then, I'll leave this matter to you. Madman nodded. But the problem now is that I can't show up. As Black Dragon said, if I show up now, they will definitely ask how I reconstructed my body and soul so quickly. If I don't find a suitable reason, then they will be suspicious when the time comes. Qin Feiyang rubbed his temples. He never thought that there would be a day when the time array of the Black Tortoise realm would make him worry. That is indeed a problem. Madman nodded. At that time, Qin Feiyang was at the Perfection Undead realm. To reconstruct the body and soul of a Perfection Undead realm expert, it would take at least tens of thousands of years, or even longer. So now, Qin Feiyang would have to wait tens of thousands of years before he could show up. After tens of thousands of years, the daylily would be cold. How about this? When the time comes, you can say that after helping Black Dragon successfully pass the tribulation, you also obtained some good fortune, so your body and soul were reconstructed so quickly. Madman said. Will that work? Qin Feiyang frowned. In any case, these people haven't passed the tribulation. Even if what we say is false, they can't verify it. Besides, everyone's opportunities and good fortune are different. Just because they haven't seen it before doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? Madman chuckled. Makes sense. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then nodded with a smile. All right, let's say it like that. All right then, I will first inquire about the whereabouts of the Fire Dragon and the Alliance leader. I will leave Zhang Diyuan's matter to you. After dealing with these matters, we can officially challenge the Blood Hall. Madman's eyes flashed coldly. At the same time, I look forward to our next encounter with the Prince of the Dragons. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Ha! Madman laughed loudly. The two left the Black Tortoise world and appeared in the cave. Madman directly left. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then also left the cave and flew toward the Alliance capital. Isn't that Mo Fengyuan? He reconstructed his body and soul so quickly. Oh my god, he must have cheated. And his cultivation is also at the half-step ruler realm. As expected, he has successfully comprehended the fifth profound of the Law of Thunder. This pair of brothers is simply monsters. Qin Feiyang's appearance immediately caused a sensation in the Hall of the Exalted. Chapter 3206. Alliance Capital. Central City District. The Vice Alliance Master sat alone in the pavilion in the courtyard, thinking about something as he drank tea. Swoosh. A figure descended in front of the courtyard. It was Qin Feiyang. Disciple greets Master. Qin Feiyang stood in front of the door and cupped his fists. The vice leader was stunned. He raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang with a surprised expression. Come in. Qin Feiyang pushed open the courtyard's door and walked into the pavilion, standing in front of the vice leader. The vice leader sized up Qin Feiyang for a moment and said in surprise, You've really reconstructed your physical body and divine soul. How did you do it? So fast? Disciple isn't sure. After I helped Black Dragon overcome his tribulation, a divine light descended from the sky and merged into my body. Then, not long after, my physical body and divine soul were reconstructed. Qin Feiyang said. There's such a thing? Master has heard that only living beings who undergo tribulation will be blessed by the heavens. I didn't expect that the person who helped to undergo the tribulation would also receive such a fortuitous encounter. The vice leader's face was filled with surprise. It might have something to do with the lightning law I comprehended back then. When I passed the heavenly tribulation and comprehended the lightning law, I was in a mysterious space the entire time. In any case, Disciple can't explain it clearly. However, to be able to reconstruct my physical body and divine soul so quickly is indeed a fortuitous encounter. Qin Feiyang rubbed his head and smiled. That's true. The The vice leader nodded and didn't probe any further. He smiled and said, "Now that you've officially stepped into the ruler realm, how do you feel?" "I feel pretty good. I've improved in all aspects, far surpassing before." Qin Feiyang smiled. This is the benefit of stepping into the ruler realm. However, don't be complacent. In the Eastern continent, a half-step ruler is at most a mid-tier expert. As long as you become a perfected ruler, or even a great perfected ruler, you'll have the ability to move unhindered. The vice leader warned. Disciple will remember. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then, why did you come to find Master this time? The vice leader asked with a smile. It's been a few days since I last saw Master. I missed him a little, so I came to pay him a visit. Qin Feiyang grinned. Smelly brat. The vice leader scolded with a smile, but his face was filled with a gratified smile. Qin Feiyang continued. Of course, there are also some questions regarding cultivation that I would like to ask Master. Sit down and talk. The vice leader pointed at the stone bench in front of Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang sat on the stone bench and said, Disciple has heard that above the fifth profound, there is a supreme profound, an ultimate profound. Is that true? You actually know about this? The vice leader was astonished. It's just hearsay, Qin Feiyang said. The vice leader poured a cup of tea and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Thank you, Master. Qin Feiyang caught the teacup. Above the fifth profound, there is indeed the ultimate profound and the ultimate profound. Moreover, these two profound are extremely terrifying. It's no exaggeration to say that if you comprehend the ultimate profound, even if you're only a half-step sovereign, you can still fight against a peak sovereign. The vice leader took a sip of tea and said with a smile. So strong? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Yes. The vice leader nodded and said, As for the ultimate profound, it's the ultimate profound in the world. As far as Master knows, no one in the sky cloud realm has comprehended the ultimate profound. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but be stunned. No one in the entire sky cloud realm has comprehended the ultimate profound? Do you know why our leader is called the number one person in the sky cloud realm in space-time law? The vice leader asked. I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The reason is that he's only one step away from the ultimate profound, the vice leader said. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. The leader of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was actually this powerful? However, although he's only one step away, this one step is the difference between heaven and earth. To successfully take this step is countless times harder than ascending to the heavens. The vice leader shook his head and sighed. Qin Feiyang asked calmly, Then, is the leader in seclusion right now trying to comprehend the ultimate profound? I'm not sure. The vice leader shook his head. Not sure? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Our leader comes and goes without a trace all day long. No one knows where he is. Master often tries to contact him, but I can't. I don't know where he's enjoying himself. The vice leader's expression was somewhat helpless. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. He couldn't contact the Hall of Famers and the vice leader. Why was that? As for the ultimate profound and the ultimate profound, don't force yourself too much. Right now, the most important thing for you is to raise your cultivation level. The vice leader warned. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then he asked curiously, Then how many people in our Rogue Cultivator Alliance have comprehended the ultimate profound? Only 3. The vice leader smiled. 3? One is definitely the leader. Could the other 2 be you and the Hall of Famers? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. This is also the reason why the 10 great elders are inferior to us. Although they're all perfect sovereigns, they haven't comprehended the ultimate profound. Therefore, their strength is inferior to ours. However, the strength of these few elders shouldn't be underestimated. Because they've basically all grasped the entrance to the ultimate profound, they're slightly stronger than ordinary perfect sovereigns. The vice leader smiled faintly. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. In short, for you, the ultimate profound should be left to its natural course. If you're lucky enough to enter an epiphany and comprehend the ultimate profound, that's naturally something worth celebrating. However, if you don't force it. After all, the road is paved one step at a time. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Otherwise, you'll end up with nothing. The vice leader warned again. Understood. Qin Feiyang nodded. He picked up his teacup and took a sip. Then he looked around and asked, "Where are the 3 Xing brothers?" "Them. Xingda and Xingsan are both cultivating. Xing Heir is still guarding the border." The vice leader smiled. "Still guarding the border?" Qin Feiyang was astonished. "Yes. We haven't found a suitable candidate yet. We can only wrong him to help guard the border for now." The vice leader shook his head. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Wrong Xing Heir? For him to say this, it meant that the 3 Xing brothers really meant a lot to the vice leader. Qin Feiyang pretended to ponder for a while. Then his eyes lit up. He looked up at the vice leader and said, "Master, I've thought of someone who you can let replace Xing Heir." "Who?" The vice leader was stunned. "Zhang Diyuan," Qin Feiyang said. "Zhang Diyuan?" The vice leader was stunned. He asked, "The former city lord of East City who sneaked up on you?" "Yes. He has the perfected immortal realm cultivation. He's the most suitable person to guard the border." Qin Feiyang nodded. "But he sneaked up on you. We can't trust him at all." The vice leader frowned. "Master, you worry too much. After so many things, do you think he still dares to mess around? Besides, he's the city lord of East City. Letting him guard the border is also a punishment." Qin Feiyang smiled. "So you deliberately took revenge on him. I knew it. How could you be such a magnanimous person?" The vice leader shook his head and laughed. Ahem. Qin Feiyang coughed dryly. His expression was slightly awkward as he said, "Regardless of whether it's revenge or magnanimity, in any case, he definitely won't dare to act recklessly now. After all, the higher one's cultivation is, the more they care about their lives." "Okay, I'll think about it. By the way, there's one more thing. Since you're here, I'll ask for your opinion. I plan to let Li Fuyuan take over as the city lord of East City. What do you think?" The vice leader looked at Qin Feiyang inquiringly. "Li Fuyuan?" Qin Feiyang stared blankly for a moment before asking. "That person who helped disciples chase after Zhang Diyuan?" "That's right." The vice leader nodded. "I've met this person before. And he's trying to get close to me because he wants to be the city lord of East City. Originally, I didn't have a good impression of him. He's too snobbish. But thanks to him, I was able to stop Zhang Diyuan. So, putting everything else aside, this person should be trustworthy." Qin Feiyang said a few words tactfully. "Okay, I have an idea." The vice leader smiled and said, "Go back to the Hall of the Exalted and spend more time with Tian. After all, you're family with us now. You should take care of him." "I take care of him? Master, you're wrong. It should be Brother Yi who takes care of me." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. "Don't play dumb. Who in the Hall of the Exalted doesn't know your talent now? Tianer can't compare to you at all." The vice leader rolled his eyes. "Aren't you afraid that I'll become arrogant by praising me like this?" Qin Feiyang smiled. "With me around, do you think you can become arrogant?" The vice leader looked at him teasingly. "Forget it. I'd better continue to keep a low profile." Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. "In short, help Tianer more in the future. After all, he's my grandson. I also hope that you can support each other like brothers." The vice leader said. "Don't worry. As long as I have the ability, I'll do my best to help Brother Yi," Qin Feiyang said solemnly. Good. Then why don't you stay and have a meal before leaving?" The vice leader asked. "Forget it. You're so high and mighty. How can you cook?" After Qin Feiyang said that, he got up and left. "Brat, are you doubting my cooking skills? Let me tell you, when I was young, I was also good in the kitchen." The vice leader stared at Qin Feiyang angrily. "Who saw it? You're bragging." Qin Feiyang chuckled without looking back and disappeared like a flash of lightning. "Bastard." The vice leader shook his head and scolded with a smile. The more he looked at this disciple, the more satisfied he was. After Qin Feiyang left the central city, he landed on a mountain peak. After pondering for a while, his eyes flashed and he took out the divine voice stone. Buzz. A shadow appeared. It was Zhang Diyuan. "Get ready to replace Second Xing and guard the barrier," Qin Feiyang said. "Guard the barrier?" Zhang Diyuan was stunned. Qin Feiyang nodded. Yes, this is my arrangement. Don't ask why, just do it. But Zhang Diyuan obviously didn't want to go. Chapter 3207. No buts. If you don't listen, I will go to master now. You know what the consequences will be. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. No, I will listen. Zhang Diyuan hurriedly agreed. Qin Feiyang's expression eased a lot, and he asked, I asked you to collect the spirit vein and crystal vein. How much have you collected so far? Not much. After all, to collect the spirit vein and crystal vein, you have to leave the Azure Wave Snow Mountain. Zhang Diyuan shook his head. Don't you have ready-made ones in the Alliance? Qin Feiyang frowned. The Alliance does have ready-made ones, but who is willing to give them to me? You also know that for those below the Sovereign Realm, Spirit Vein and Crystal Vein are indispensable. So, I can only send people to look outside. Zhang Diyuan said. Okay, but you have to remember that your men are not allowed to rob outside. Qin Feiyang said with a cold face. Understood. Zhang Diyuan nodded repeatedly. After turning off the sound transmission stone, Zhang Diyuan found that his back was already dripping with cold sweat. Although Qin Feiyang's cultivation was much lower than his, when he faced Qin Feiyang, it was as if he was facing a mountain. There was a heavy sense of oppression. Half a month later, Madman finally returned. Inside the cave, the two sat opposite each other. How is it? Qin Feiyang poured a cup of tea for Madman. Madman moistened his throat and shook his head. I have inquired about the Hall of the Exalted, including the 4 major districts of the Alliance, but there is no trace of the Alliance Master. What happened? I went to find the Deputy Alliance Master, but he also said that he couldn't contact the Alliance Master. Qin Feiyang frowned. Do you think something happened to the Alliance Master? Madman was surprised. How is that possible? The strength of the Alliance Master is quite terrifying. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Although the whereabouts of the Alliance Master have not been found, the whereabouts of the Fire Dragon are a little known. Madman said again. Where is it? Qin Feiyang hurriedly asked. According to my sources, it seems that someone saw it leaving the Azure Wave Snow Mountain from the north. However, I didn't manage to find out exactly where he went. Madman shook his head. Left the Kingland Snow Mountain? Qin Feiyang frowned, pondered for a while, and said, It seems that the investigation strength of the two of us is far from enough. We still need help. After saying that, Qin Feiyang brought Madman to the Black Tortoise world, and directly sent a message to Elder Hua. Is the Alliance Master not in the Alliance capital? Elder Hua was also surprised when he heard their pleas. Based on our current investigation, he shouldn't be in the Alliance capital, Qin Feiyang said. All right, I'll get Chu Yin to investigate. Elder Hua nodded. Wait. Seeing that Elder Hua was about to turn off the divine sound transmission stone, Qin Feiyang hurriedly stopped him and said, Also, there's one more thing that I think you should know. What is it? Elder Hua looked at him suspiciously. Do you know its identity in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a giant python appeared. This was the fire dragon's previous body. It. Elder Hua was startled and asked, You've seen it before? Yes. Furthermore, we even helped it pass its tribulation and transformed into the fire dragon. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then go and find it. It definitely knows the whereabouts of the Alliance Master. Elder Hua said. It's also gone now. We can't find it. Wait, from what you said you know its identity. Qin Feiyang and Madman were surprised. Of course I know. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance's Alliance Master has 2 very powerful pythons. These 2 pythons are a couple, and their strength is second only to the Alliance Master in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Elder Hua said in a deep voice. Second only to the Alliance Master? Then aren't they stronger than the Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers? Qin Feiyang was shocked. It's not that they're stronger than them, but they're not weaker either. They both have grasped a supreme profundity. And the fire dragon you're talking about is the child of these 2 pythons. Hence, its status in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is relatively high. Therefore, I'm guessing that it definitely knows the whereabouts of the Alliance Master. Elder Hua explained. I see. Qin Feiyang and Madman were enlightened. Since it's gone, there's nothing we can do. How about this? You guys stay in the Alliance capital and wait for it to appear. Immediately find a chance to ask it. At the same time, I'll also ask Chu Yin to send someone to look for them outside. Elder Hua suggested. Alright, let's do that. Qin Feiyang nodded. Oh right, I've also thought of something. I wonder if you guys have heard about it in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? Elder Hua suddenly said. What is it? Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at him suspiciously. A few days ago, someone from the Blood Hall sent a letter of challenge. Elder Hua said. A letter of challenge? The two of them were stunned. Yes. Elder Hua nodded and said. The general content is that the Blood Hall of the Western Land, the Demon Hall of the Eastern Land, the Sky Hall of the Southern Land, and the Deity Hall of the Northern Land are organizing an exchange meeting for the younger generation. Exchange meeting? Qin Feiyang and Madman were stunned. Don't think that this exchange meeting is just a simple chat and drinking tea. On the surface, it's an exchange meeting, but it's actually a battle between the four super forces. Elder Hua said. In other words, this is a spar? Qin Feiyang asked. Isn't the way you put it? This is a fierce battle. Moreover, according to my analysis, this matter. Speaking up to this point, Elder Hua looked at the two of them strangely and said, is directed at you guys. Directed at us? The two of them looked at each other. Yes, because this so-called exchange meeting has never happened before. However, this time, I just spread the news that you guys have secretly entered the Demon Hall, and the Blood Hall did this. Is there such a coincidence in this world? Moreover, I know the faces of those people from the Blood Hall very well. If they don't have a motive, they won't go through so much trouble. Therefore, this matter is definitely directed at you guys. They want to use this exchange meeting as an opportunity to get rid of you guys. Elder Hua chuckled. Then why are you still laughing? Qin Feiyang was speechless. This matter has nothing to do with me. Why can't I laugh? Moreover, as expected, they will definitely come up with various restrictions during the exchange meeting, such as your slaughter domain and sovereign divine weapon. Elder Hua looked at the two of them gloatingly. So what? We're not even in the Demon Hall. Madman pursed his lips. However, the key is that the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is also involved. Elder Hua said again. What? The Rogue Cultivator Alliance is also involved. Why don't we know about this? The two of them frowned. This exchange meeting is still in the process of being discussed, so there hasn't been any news yet. Elder Hua smiled faintly. Qin Feiyang asked, in that case, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance will most likely let the two of us participate. This will depend on the decision of the Deputy Alliance Leader and the Hall of Famers. I'm telling you guys first so that you can be mentally prepared. Elder Hua said. The Sky Hall and Deity Hall aren't stupid. They definitely know the purpose of the Blood Hall, so why would they still interfere? Qin Feiyang frowned. Of course they're not stupid, but they're also very interested in you guys. As for whether they're friends or foes, I don't know. Elder Hua shook his head. Alright, we'll pay attention. The current mission is still to find the Alliance Leader and the Fire Dragon. Qin Feiyang said. Elder Hua nodded his head, and the projection dissipated. Exchange meeting. Madman lowered his head and pondered for a while before looking at Qin Feiyang and asking, what do you think of this matter? I think Elder Hua's analysis is right. The Blood Hall is really targeting us. However, we're in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, so there's no need to worry too much. Besides, the Deputy Alliance Leader and the Lord of the Hall of the Exalted may not let us participate. After all, our cultivation is still far from that of the older disciples. Qin Feiyang pondered. They're really persistent. But haven't they thought that even if we're in the demonic hall, we can just not participate? Madman sneered. If that's the case, they will definitely think of ways to force us to participate. For example, the reward. The person who gets first place will be rewarded with a supreme treasure. Can you resist this temptation? Qin Feiyang chuckled. If I didn't know their purpose, I definitely couldn't resist it. But now that I know, it's a different story. Madman smiled sinisterly. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Maybe they have some trump cards. At that time, we'll have to participate even if we don't want to. In short, we can't have too much luck with the blood halls style. Qin Feiyang shook his head. He had a strong premonition that this matter wouldn't be so simple. Chapter 3208. In just a few days, Zhang Diyuan took office. Naturally, the token to open the barrier had also fallen into his hands. For Qin Feiyang and the madman, this undoubtedly meant that they had one less worry. A few more days passed. Li Fuyuan finally received the order to succeed the East City Lord. This made him overjoyed. On the same day, he sent a voice transmission to Li Yuandao, asking Li Yuandao to invite Qin Feiyang to his house as a guest and prepare a big gift to express his gratitude. However, Qin Feiyang used the excuse of going into seclusion to politely refuse. This was because a snobbish person like Li Fuyuan could be contacted, but it was better to have as little contact as possible. Another half a month passed. Qin Feiyang finally received a message from Elder Hua. "How's the investigation going?" Qin Feiyang asked. Elder Hua shook his head and smiled. "You don't know how mysterious this matter is." Mysterious? Qin Feiyang was stunned. This old man didn't find the whereabouts of the alliance leader, but this fire dragon. At this point, Elder Hua's expression became incomparably strange, and he said, "It's currently in our demon palace." "What? In your demon palace?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why would the fire dragon go to the demon palace? "Back then, didn't you ask me to help you investigate? In the end, what a coincidence. That girl Chu Yin found a sneaky fire dragon outside the demon palace. Chu Yin caught it and asked, 'It was the fire dragon you mentioned?' Elder Hua said, 'Sneaky? Why did it sneak to your demon palace?' Qin Feiyang was suspicious. 'We asked, but it would rather die than say anything.' Elder Hua shook his head. His cultivation wasn't much, but his bones were quite tough. 'Then where is it now?' Qin Feiyang asked. 'It's locked up with Chu Yin.' Elder Hua smiled. 'Then what do you want to do with it?' Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. 'What do you think?' Elder Hua asked. 'You're the ones who caught it. I don't have the right to decide.' Qin Feiyang chuckled. 'Stop pretending. According to the relationship between our Devil Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, we should have killed it. Because even if we kill it, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance will have nothing to say. After all, it was the one who barged into the Devil Palace. However, this old man knows that you're also interested in it. That's why I kept it.' Elder Hua said. 'All right.' Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and nodded. 'I admit that I am indeed interested in it, because I really want to know why it would take such a huge risk to go to your demon palace. This old man wants to know too.' Elder Hua pondered for a moment and said, 'How about this? I'll give it to you when you have the time.' 'Wait a moment. I have to come up with a plan for this.' Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and then lowered his head to ponder. 'What's there to plan?' Elder Hua was bewildered. 'Based on its status in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, I'm definitely unable to take control of it by force. Otherwise, I'll definitely be the one to suffer losses. So, I have to look for an opportunity to gain its trust. So long as I'm able to gain its trust, then it'll naturally tell me the reason.' Qin Feiyang smiled. 'Is that so?' Elder Hua came to a sudden understanding and nodded. 'All right. I got it.' Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly lit up, and he smiled. 'You'll pretend to execute it in public so that you can make an example out of it. After that, I'll seize the opportunity to rescue it from all of you.' 'Kid, you really have a lot of tricks up your sleeve.' Elder Hua roared with laughter, and then he thought for a moment and said, 'Then let's go to Ocean of Cloud City. However, you have to be prepared because the members of our Devil Hall won't show mercy to you.' 'Of course. Acting has to be realistic.' Qin Feiyang grinned. 'You're really confident. All right, we'll do as you say. I'll get the law enforcers to take it to Ocean of Cloud City, and the execution will be held at the square at the center of the city.' Elder Hua spoke. 'All right.' Qin Feiyang nodded, and then he suddenly asked, 'Right, have you found those 2 spies I told you about?' 'Of course. But we didn't alert them.' Elder Hua chuckled. 'Who are they?' Qin Feiyang was curious. 'That's none of your business.' Elder Hua shook his head. Qin Feiyang laughed bitterly. I won't tell anyone. This matter is a great humiliation to our Devil Hall. So the fewer people who know about it, the better. Let's get down to business. Elder He's projection vanished as soon as he finished speaking. Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly. But it was indeed so. The dignified overlord of the Eastern continent actually had an elder who was a spy from the Independent Cultivator Alliance. If news of this were to spread, the Devil Hall would definitely be ridiculed. Qin Feiyang put the transmission stone away and walked out of the castle. He stood in the main hall and gazed at one of the cultivation rooms before he smiled. Senior brother, you've come out. Time to get down to business. Bang. The stone door opened, and then Madman walked out and asked, Is there any news? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, We'll talk on the way. Both of them left the castle and appeared within the abode. Qin Feiyang pondered deeply for a short while before he walked out of the abode and arrived before the abode. Little Jean, are you there? It didn't take long. The energy of the laws that sealed the abode vanished, and then two figures walked out. It was Zhao Xiaojin and the green-clothed woman. What? I'm telling you not to have any improper thoughts about little Jean. The green-clothed woman gazed coldly at them. Big Sister Dandan. Zhao Xiaojin couldn't help but blush when she heard this. As for Qin Feiyang and Madman, they chose to ignore her. Qin Feiyang looked at Zhao Xiaojin and said with a smile, Let's go. Zhao Xiaojin was stunned. Where are we going? Didn't you say so? You want us to accompany you back to pay respects to your parents and brother? Qin Feiyang said. At the same time, he gave Zhao Xiaojin a meaningful glance. Pay respects to my parents and brother? Did I say that? Zhao Xiaojin was stunned, but when she noticed Qin Feiyang's gaze, she slapped her head and nodded. Yes, yes, yes. Look at me. I was so engrossed in my cultivation that I almost forgot about it. Let's go then. Qin Feiyang smiled. All right. Zhao Xiaojin nodded. Xiaojin, wait a moment. Why don't I accompany you? I'm worried if they accompany you. The green-clothed woman hurriedly stopped Zhao Xiaojin and whispered. What's there to be worried about? Don't tell me they'll eat me? Zhao Xiaojin was speechless. That might not be the case. The green-clothed woman snorted coldly, guarding against Qin Feiyang as if she was guarding against thieves. Sister Dandan, you're thinking too much. They're all good people, it's fine. Cultivate well, I'll be back soon. Zhao Xiaojin comforted her, then looked at Qin Feiyang and laughed. Let's go. Whiz. At that moment, the three of them soared into the air and flew towards the Alliance capital. Madman asked suspiciously, Zhao Xiaojin, is that woman crazy? Why is she always targeting us? Sister Dandan is actually quite a good person. It's just that her pride is too strong and she can't tolerate others ignoring her. As for the two of you, every time you see her, you treat her like air. You must feel uncomfortable. Zhao Xiaojin shook her head and laughed. To put it bluntly, it's the temper of a young miss. Madman looked down on her. She's a young miss to begin with. It's normal for her to have such a temper. There's no need to pay attention to her. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. Qin Dage, brother Mo. What the hell are you doing? I don't remember asking you to accompany me back. Zhao Xiaojin looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang and Madman. I don't know either. Ask him. Madman pointed at Qin Feiyang. Zhao Xiaojin looked at Qin Feiyang. The situation is like this. Qin Feiyang briefly explained the matter of the fire dragon. Zhao Xiaojin knew their identities, so she didn't have to worry about anything. What does that have to do with me? Hearing this, Zhao Xiaojin asked suspiciously. This is just in case. Because think about it, when the Demon Palace executed the fire dragon, senior brother Madman, and I happened to be there. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? So I thought of letting you go with us. This way, if someone asks, we can say that we're accompanying you back to pay respects and happen to encounter this matter. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. You're really thoughtful. Zhao Xiaojin's face was full of admiration. After all, in such a situation, we have to be careful at every step. Qin Feiyang sighed. Then how's the investigation going? Zhao Xiaojin was curious. You want to know? Qin Feiyang asked. If you're willing to say, I'll listen. If you don't want to say, just pretend that I didn't ask. Zhao Xiaojin giggled. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh and transmitted his voice. The matter has been investigated. The deputy leader is indeed colluding with the blood hall. What? Zhao Xiaojin's body stiffened. Don't doubt it. I have ironclad evidence in my hands now. Qin Feiyang thought to himself. What about brother Yi Tian? Zhao Xiaojin hurriedly asked. Yi Tian has nothing to do with this. Qin Feiyang shook his head. What should we do? If brother Yi Tian knows the truth, how can he bear it? Zhao Xiaojin's face was full of worry. Everyone needs a process of growth, and Yi Tian is no exception. Therefore, he has to face what he has to face. We can't help him with this matter. He can only bear it himself. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Why is the deputy leader so muddle-headed? Doesn't he know that colluding with the blood hall will not only harm himself, but also cause brother Yi Tian irreparable harm? Zhao Xiaojin's face was full of anger. People who are blinded by greed have no rationality. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Wait, old Qin, this elder Hu said that he won't show mercy to us. If only the three of us go, won't it feel like we're sending ourselves to death? Madman suddenly frowned. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and nodded. It does feel like we're sending ourselves to death. It seems like we have to call Black Dragon and Huoluan. With their help, it shouldn't be a big problem. What about them? Madman asked. I don't know either. We have to look for them. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Buzz. Before he finished speaking, Qin Feiyang's voice transmission stone suddenly vibrated. Qin Feiyang's eyes had a trace of suspicion. He took out the voice transmission stone, and a figure quickly appeared. Li Yuandao? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. Brother Mo, you're not in the cave? Looking at Zhao Xiaojin and Madman beside him, Li Yuandao couldn't help but be stunned. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. No, I have to go out for something. Do you have something to do? If your father wants to invite me, wait until I return. Chapter 3209. My father is indeed looking for you. But it's not to invite you over as a guest, but to ask for your help. Li Yuandao's expression was filled with helplessness. What's the matter? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. You probably don't know yet, but the Black Dragon and Fire Luan by your side have been causing a ruckus in the East City these few days. My father has no choice but to ask for your help. Li Yuandao sighed. What? Qin Feiyang was startled. I knew it, you definitely don't know about this. Li Yuandao shook his head. What are they causing a ruckus about? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Actually, it's not that big of a ruckus. It's just that they like to go to restaurants to drink. And when they're drinking, they don't like to be disturbed. So whenever they go to a restaurant, they will chase the people inside out. Think about it. A restaurant is a place to do business. If they cause such a ruckus, how can others do business? So now, all the restaurant owners are looking for my father to solve this matter. Li Yuandao shook his head. Is that so? Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. The Black Dragon and Fire Luan are both related to you. So my father can't offend them, so he can only ask for your help. Li Yuandao sighed. Then which restaurant are they in now? Qin Feiyang asked. I heard from my father that they're in the Fengchen restaurant. Li Yuandao replied. Fengchen restaurant? Qin Feiyang and Zhao Xiaojin were stunned. Wasn't that a famous brothel in the East City? Their conflict with Feng Wanyan was caused by this Fengchen restaurant. These two fellows have such a hobby? Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. Anyway, you should quickly take them away, lest they cause public anger. Li Yuandao smiled bitterly. All right. We'll go now. Qin Feiyang nodded and turned off the voice transmission stone. He helplessly looked at Madman and said, Seems like these two aren't good people either. Obviously. Madman shrugged his shoulders. Let's go. We have to pass by the Alliance capital anyway. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Fengchen restaurant. At this moment, all the guests, including the brothel keeper and waiters, were standing outside the door, their faces full of indignation. Within the restaurant's main hall, there was a 1-meter-long black dragon and a rooster-like bird sitting on a chair. There was a group of women around them, and they were all the Wind Dust Pavilion's Wind Moon women. At this moment, All the women surrounded the black dragon and the chick, occasionally feeding them a piece of fruit or holding a wine cup to their mouths. They looked like they were serving two masters. Without a doubt, these two beasts were the black dragon and the fire Luan. Mo Yuan. The brothel keeper looked at Qin Feiyang as if she had seen her savior. The others finally heaved a sigh of relief. The main character had finally arrived. Qin Feiyang made a shushing gesture to the group of people, and then silently walked into the main hall. The black dragon and the fire Luan were enjoying themselves. They did not notice Qin Feiyang at all. The women noticed, but under Qin Feiyang's hint, they did not make a sound. Qin Feiyang walked over. Seeing them sitting on the chair with a satisfied expression, his face could not help but darken. Bird Master, Dragon Master, do you want me to massage your shoulders and legs? Qin Feiyang asked. Sure. The two beasts replied without hesitation. But as soon as they finished speaking, they realized something was wrong. This voice, immediately. The two beasts quivered and stood up to look at Qin Feiyang. You both know how to enjoy yourself. Qin Feiyang laughed. No. The black dragon hurriedly waved its claws and laughed dryly. That? Do you want a drink too? Come to your second uncle. Qin Feiyang's veins bulged, and directly gave the two beasts a knock on the head, and said angrily. Look at you guys now, what's the difference between you and those human playboys? This, cough cough, bro give me some face. The black dragon laughed awkwardly. You still know how to save face? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said. Don't you think it's embarrassing enough? Let's go. It's just a drink, how embarrassing can it be? The black dragon and the fire Luan complained and helplessly got up and followed Qin Feiyang outside. The women finally heaved a sigh of relief. Young Master Mo, thank you. The brothel keeper stepped forward and was extremely grateful. It's fine. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, then looked at the people around him and cupped his hands. Everyone, I'm sorry for causing trouble for you. Don't worry, I will definitely restrain them in the future. Actually, it's not a big deal. Young Master Mo doesn't have to take it to heart. Of course, this was just polite words. Because Qin Feiyang was now the disciple of the Vice Alliance leader, who would dare to offend him? Qin Feiyang smiled slightly, then looked at the two beasts and said, Let's go. Shua. At that moment, the three men and two beasts soared into the air and flew towards the border. I say, two big brothers, is wine that good to drink? After leaving the Alliance capital, Qin Feiyang looked helplessly at the black dragon and the fire Luan. You're a human. Why are you asking us? The black dragon was stunned. I don't drink, so I don't know what's so good about wine, Qin Feiyang said. So it's like that. Then you're really a weirdo. The black dragon despised. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Not drinking is a weirdo? What kind of logic is that? Fine, if you want to drink, I won't object, but you can't mess around. Do you know what kind of effect this will bring to me? Others will definitely scold me behind my back, saying that I'm indulging you and protecting you. I'm the disciple of the Vice Alliance leader. Can't you leave me some face? Also, don't you dislike being disturbed by others? Why are you letting a group of prostitutes serve you when you're in the Fengqin Tower? Qin Feiyang looked at them with disdain. Cough cough. It's just a feeling, you human women are quite interesting. The black dragon laughed embarrassedly. Scram. In short, don't use my name to act like a tyrant outside. I don't want others to point fingers at me behind my back, Qin Feiyang said. Fine, we'll be careful next time. The black dragon nodded repeatedly. Qin Feiyang felt helpless. It seemed that he had to make a trip to the Heavenly Pleasure Tower to get some wine, otherwise, who knew what kind of trouble these two fellows would cause in the future. Under the black dragon's lead, they quickly arrived at the border and met with Zhang Diyuan. When he saw Qin Feiyang again, Zhang Diyuan was like a little wife who had been wronged, causing Qin Feiyang to have goosebumps all over his body. Didn't he just ask him to guard the barrier? Was there a need to be so wronged? Cloudsea City. It was bustling as always. Since his reason for coming out was to accompany Zhao Xiaojin home to pay her respects, he naturally had to make a trip to the Zhao family. In front of the Zhao family's gate, Zhao Xiaojin, Qin Feiyang, and the black dragon appeared out of thin air. As for Madman and Hulwan, Qin Feiyang sent them to the Heavenly Pleasure Tower. Not only did the Heavenly Pleasure Tower produce their own immortal intoxication, but they also had Heavenly Mountain Dew and other fine wines that would definitely satisfy Huoluan and the Black Dragon. Young miss? The guards at the Zhao family's gate were stunned when they saw Zhao Xiaojin suddenly return. What? Am I not welcome? Zhao Xiaojin said with a cold expression. Welcome, welcome. Young miss, please come in. The guards repeatedly nodded. Upon entering the Zhao family, Qin Feiyang clearly noticed that the number of guards and servants in the Zhao family had decreased, and all of them had worried expressions. Besides that, the once majestic Zhao family was now covered in withered leaves, and weeds were growing out of the cracks in the stones. It was obvious that they hadn't been cleared out in a long time. But when they saw Zhao Xiaojin return, a sliver of hope burned in the eyes of the Zhao family's guards and servants. Cousin. Very soon, a young man in his 20s ran over with a few servants following behind him. Zhao Feng? Zhao Xiaojin was stunned. Cousin, you've finally returned. Zhao Feng was overjoyed. Greetings, young Mississippi. The group of servants were also overjoyed. He is. Qin Feiyang was confused. He's one of my uncle's sons. His name is Zhao Feng. Zhao Xiaojin messaged to explain, and then she coldly looked at Zhao Feng and indifferently said, Don't think too much. I only came back to pay respects to my parents and little brother. After saying this, she left. Cousin. Zhao Feng's expression froze as he hurriedly knelt on the ground and called out. Cousin, please save our Zhao family. Zhao Xiaojin's eyebrows furrowed. Father is dead, second uncle is dead, and the guards and servants have all run away. There are less than 50 people left in the Zhao family. The Zhao family doesn't even have a single person who can make decisions. If you don't do anything, our Zhao family will be destroyed sooner or later. Zhao Feng called out. That's what you asked for. Zhao Xiaojin thought for a while before saying indifferently. Yes, it's all my father and second uncle's fault, but they paid the price for it. Mo Yuanyuan was there, and a person called Xing Sen killed them with his own hands. And our Zhao family's soul and crystal veins were also taken by that Qin Feiyang and madman Mo. But now we don't hate anyone. We just hope that you can come back and revive our Zhao family. Zhao Feng said. I've already said that I have nothing to do with the Zhao family. You should go find someone else. Zhao Xiaojin shook her head. The things that Zhao Yunhai and Zhao Yuntian had done had made her completely give up. Thus, no matter what happened to the Zhao family, she would not help them. Zhao Feng couldn't help but despair. At this moment, a guard hurriedly ran in and called out to Zhao Feng. Young master, something big has happened. But before he could finish, the guard noticed Zhao Xiaojin. After a moment of surprise, he became ecstatic and bowed. Greetings, young Mississippi. What's the big deal? Zhao Xiaojin looked suspiciously at him. It's like this. Not long ago, the enforcers of the Demon Palace brought a fire dragon to the square in the center of the city, and announced that this fire dragon was from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. He trespassed on the Demon Palace, and was captured by the Demon Palace. Now he will be executed on the spot. The guard hurriedly said. Qin Feiyang and Zhao Xiaojin glanced at each other, a sharp light flashing through their eyes. Chapter 32:10. I'll go with Black Dragon. Qin Feiyang messaged. Then you be careful. Zhao Xiaojin warned. Qin Feiyang nodded, and then he turned to Black Dragon and said, Big brother Black Dragon, let's go. With a wave of its claw, Black Dragon immediately took Qin Feiyang and flew out of the Zhao family toward the plaza in the center of the city. Black Dragon. That's a divine beast. It was only now that the Zhao family members noticed Black Dragon's existence, and shock appeared on their faces. Cousin, I'm begging you. If you don't care about the Zhao family will truly be finished. Zhao Feng began to plead. That's right, young lady. This is the land of our Zhao family. If the Zhao family is gone, the land will be gone as well. Then your parents, your little brother, and the ancestors enshrined in the ancestral hall will all become wandering ghosts. Can you bear to see such a thing happen? The guards and retainers also kneeled on the ground and begged. At the same time, at the plaza in the center of the city, at this moment there was a sea of people. 10 black-armored men stood in the plaza. They were tall and straight, and they all had a skull insignia on their bodies. They were the enforcers of the demon hall, and their cultivations were not weak. 9 of them were late-stage gods, and the leader was a perfected god. In the center of the plaza was a 10-meter-long fire dragon. It didn't have any injuries, but there was a bloody hole in its sea of energy. It was clear that its sea of energy had been crippled. The fire dragon is a divine beast. The demon hall is willing to kill it? So what if it's a divine beast? Who told it to be from the Wandering Cultivator Alliance? If the Wandering Cultivator Alliance dares to barge into the demon hall, isn't that just seeking death? Everyone was chatting. The enforcer leader looked up at the sky, then at a black-armored man next to him and barked, "Do it!" Yes. The black-armored man replied respectfully and took out a Zamadeo. It was more than 4 meters long and shone with a cold light. It was extremely sharp. This was also a peak-grade heaven-defying divine artifact. The leader of the enforcers roared, and the black-armored man immediately raised his Zamadeo and chopped towards the fire dragon's head. The fire dragon's weak expression was filled with despair. But at this moment, boom! A terrifying divine aura surged, and the black-armored man was sent flying along with his Zamadeo. What? Someone actually dares to obstruct the Devil Hall's enforcers? Everyone was shocked. The fire dragon was also stunned. Whoosh! In the next instant, a man and a dragon appeared in front of the fire dragon. "It's you." The fire dragon looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. "What's wrong with you? How did it fall into the hands of the demon palace?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "It's a long story." The fire dragon sighed and said, "Hurry up and bring me away." Qin Feiyang nodded and waved his hand, bringing the fire dragon along. "Mo Fengyuan? You're openly challenging the Devil Hall. Do you know that?" The leader of the enforcers roared. "So what if I'm challenging the Devil Hall?" Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Good. I've long heard that you're an arrogant person. Now that I've met you, you're indeed worthy of your reputation." The leader of the enforcers looked extremely gloomy. "I'm arrogant. What can you do to me? Brother Black Dragon, cripple them." Qin Feiyang sneered. "Okay." The Black Dragon cackled, and the divine aura of a perfected sovereign surged out, imprisoning the 10 enforcers. "What? It's actually a perfected sovereign divine beast." The 10 enforcers were horrified. At the same time, 10 strands of divine dragon energy surged into appearance and shot into their seas of energy. Shrill cries resounded as their seas of energy were crippled on the spot. "Well done. Kill them." The fire dragon roared. "We can't kill them. We can't afford to offend the Devil Hall. Quickly seize the opportunity while their experts haven't arrived to leave." Qin Feiyang hurriedly stopped the fire dragon, and then he nodded to the black dragon. The black dragon understood, and it immediately swept up Qin Feiyang and the fire dragon before it flashed out of the city and vanished amongst the mountains outside the city. Swoosh! At the same time that Qin Feiyang and the 2 divine beasts vanished, a figure descended from the sky above the square, and it was Elder Hua. "What's going on?" Elder Hua frowned. "My lord, it's Mo Fengyuan. He just happened to be in the city, and he had a perfected sovereign realm black dragon by his side. He made the black dragon heavily injure us and rescue the fire dragon." The leader of the enforcers hurriedly roared. "You can't even deal with such a small matter properly." Elder Hua glared at the enforcers, and then he gazed outside the square, while a wisp of a smile flashed through his eyes. After that he gazed at the 10 enforcers and shouted, "Go back. I'll personally look for the Alliance Master of the Independent Cultivator Alliance, and ask him to give me an explanation." "Yes." The enforcers replied and left with Elder Hua. "Mo Fengyuan is really audacious." "Yes. He's probably the only one who dares to seize someone right under the nose of the Devil Hall. Mo Fengyuan reminds me of Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo. They're both arrogant young men. I wonder what will happen when they meet. Is there even a need to think about it? It'll definitely be interesting." Moreover, Mo Fengyuan isn't ordinary as well. Of course. How could he be ordinary when he has a perfected sovereign realm divine beast by his side? According to my knowledge, even the Vice Alliance Master's eldest grandson, Yi Tian, doesn't have the protection of a divine beast. Even though the entire process was very short, Qin Feiyang's appearance instantly shook the entire city. Moreover, the news was swiftly spreading to the other cities. Outside the city, the black dragon stopped in the sky above a valley. There were many ferocious beasts in the mountains, but all of them fled when they sensed the black dragon's aura. Qin Feiyang withdrew an Origin Ocean Divine Pill and tossed it to the fire dragon. The fire dragon opened its mouth and swallowed it, and its shattered sea of qi immediately started to repair itself. What exactly happened to you? How did you fall into the hands of the Devil Hall for no reason? Otherwise, I would have accompanied Zhao Xiaojin back to pay respects to her parents and younger brother. You wouldn't even know how you died. Qin Feiyang frowned. Thank you. The fire dragon thanked him and fell silent. Qin Feiyang frowned. This fellow is definitely hiding something in his heart? The divine voice transmission stone rang. Qin Feiyang took out the divine voice transmission stone, and the madman and the fire luan appeared. Where are you right now? The madman frowned. We're outside the city, Qin Feiyang said and sent the coordinates to the madman. Then he sent a message to Zhao Xiaojin. Very soon, the madman and the fire luan rushed over. The madman glanced at the fire dragon and asked via voice transmission, "How is it? You've been silent since the beginning." Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly. The madman looked at the fire dragon and said, "Back at the trial grounds, we told you our identities. Do you still not believe us? If you really encounter any problems, you can tell us and we'll help you think of a solution." The fire dragon glanced at the madman and then at Qin Feiyang, but he still remained silent. "You're going a little too far. We saved you in the trial grounds, and now we've saved your life again. Don't you trust us?" The madman raised his eyebrows. When the fire dragon heard this, he couldn't help but struggle. Swish. At this moment, Zhao Xiaojin also came. Looking at the fire dragon in front of him, Zhao Xiaojin said in surprise, "It's really you. When I heard that the demon hall was going to execute a fire dragon, I thought it was a coincidence." The fire dragon glanced at Zhao Xiaojin and still didn't say a word. "Has it always been like this?" Zhao Xiaojin looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and asked secretly. Qin Feiyang replied and looked at the fire dragon. "Running to the demon hall is not a joke. Are you investigating something? Don't worry, we will definitely not tell anyone, and you can completely trust us." The fire dragon struggled for a moment before looking up at the three of them. "Can I really trust you?" "Of course." Qin Feiyang and the other two nodded. The fire dragon pondered for a moment, then looked up at the three of them and said, "All right, I'll tell you, but you have to promise me that you won't tell anyone else." "We promise," Qin Feiyang said. "All right. I went to the demon hall to investigate the whereabouts of my parents and the alliance leader." The fire dragon set up a soundproof barrier and said in a deep voice, "What? Investigate the whereabouts of your parents and the alliance leader?" Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other in dismay. The fire dragon actually didn't know the whereabouts of the alliance leader and the others? This was too unexpected. "That's right. As you said, my parents and the alliance leader are missing." The fire dragon sighed. "How could they be missing? I've also heard about this from Master." Qin Feiyang frowned. "I've never heard Master mention it either." The madman shook his head. "Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers. They don't know either. They thought that the Alliance leader and my parents just went into seclusion or went to have fun." The fire dragon said. When he mentioned the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers, he paused for a moment, as if he had something to say. "Then why didn't you tell them?" Zhao Xiaojin was suspicious. The fire dragon paused again. "You don't trust the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers?" Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered as he asked. The fire dragon raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise, as if asking, "How did you know?" "As expected," Qin Feiyang muttered. He looked at the fire dragon and said, "Actually, it's not difficult to guess. For you to hide such a big matter from them, it shows that you don't trust them." "That's right. I just can't trust them. And it's precisely because the two of you are the disciples of the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers that I hesitated to tell you." The fire dragon looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and sighed. What's the specific situation? Qin Feiyang frowned. A few thousand years ago, the Alliance leader and my parents went missing, but I didn't care at that time. Like the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers, I thought that they just went into seclusion. But a few hundred years ago, in a cultivation room in the Alliance capital, I inadvertently found a bit of dried blood in a corner. This is very abnormal. Why would there be blood in the cultivation room? So I thought of the worst possibility. Could they have encountered an accident? The fire dragon's gaze was extremely gloomy. Encountered an accident? Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other. Black Dragon and Fire Luan were also shocked. One must know that whether it was the Alliance leader or the fire dragon's parents, they were peak existences in the Eastern continent. How could they have encountered an accident? And it was in their own cultivation room. Chapter 32:11. Just based on this bloodstain, isn't it a bit too childish to conclude that something bad happened to them? Qin Feiyang frowned. That's right. This little bit of blood doesn't mean anything. Maybe something went wrong during their cultivation, and they spat out blood themselves? It's just that they didn't clean it up at that time. Moreover, the Alliance Master is known as the #1 in space-time law in the Sky Cloud realm. Even if someone wants to harm him, they might not be able to do it. Madman also said. I thought so too, but why can't I contact them? It's fine if the Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers can't be contacted, but even I can't be contacted. That's not normal. As for what you said at the end, the Alliance Master is indeed the #1 in the Sky Cloud realm in terms of space-time law attainments, but what if the person closest to them wants to harm them? Fire Dragon said solemnly. The person closest to them. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. If that's the case, no matter how strong the Alliance Master is, he can't guard against it. Then what are you thinking? Zhao Xiaojin frowned. To tell you the truth, I suspect that someone colluded with the Demon Palace and plotted against my parents and the Alliance Master. Fire Dragon said. What? Someone colluded with the Demon Palace? Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other in dismay. Why would Fire Dragon be so suspicious? One has to know that the real collusion is between the Vice Alliance Master and the Blood Hall. Wait. It doesn't know that the Vice Alliance Master is colluding with the Blood Hall. And the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Palace have always been enemies, so the Alliance Master and his parents will naturally associate it with the Demon Palace. Qin Feiyang secretly said. So it ran to the Demon Palace to investigate? Madman said. That should be the case. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Fire Dragon. Then did you find anything in the Demon Palace? No. Before I sneaked into the Demon Palace, I was discovered by Chu Yun. Fire Dragon looked angry. Fortunately, you didn't sneak in. Otherwise, you would have been beaten to death. Qin Feiyang was speechless. How could he do such a thing? Now that I've told you, shouldn't you help me? The Fire Dragon looked expectantly at Qin Feiyang's group of 3 and the 2 black dragons. How can I help? Go with you to the Devil Palace to die. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. What do you mean by courting death? Don't we have the Black Dragon and the Fire Luan? Both of them are so powerful. If they're discovered, they can definitely escape. But then again, why do you have 2 such powerful divine beasts by your side? Fire Dragon had a suspicious look on his face. Many things happened while you were away from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. You will know when you return. As for helping you, we can help you, but not to the Devil Palace. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Where are we going then? Fire Dragon was puzzled. If your suspicions are true, and the Alliance Master and your parents were really plotted against, then this matter definitely has nothing to do with the Devil Palace. Qin Feiyang said. Definitely? Fire Dragon was slightly taken aback. He frowned and said, Are you so sure? Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded. If it was really the Devil Palace's doing, then Elder Hu wouldn't have to go through so much trouble to deal with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Don't make it sound so natural. Why? There are only 2 major forces in the Eastern continent, the Devil Palace and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Besides the Devil Palace, no one else has the ability to do so. Fire Dragon frowned. If I say it's not, then it's not. As for the reason, you will understand in the future. After saying that, Qin Feiyang lowered his head and became gloomy. If the Alliance Master was really plotted against, then the culprit must be someone close to the Alliance Master. Otherwise, with the Alliance Master's strength, even if Elder Hu came with a sovereign divine weapon, he wouldn't be able to do it silently. By the way, who is the closest person to the Alliance Master and your parents? Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Dragon suspiciously. The closest person is definitely me. But I can't possibly harm them. Next would be the Vice Alliance Master, the Hall of Famers, and the 10 Great Elders. Fire Dragon said. Then, does the Alliance Master have any other relatives? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. No. He is alone. Fire Dragon shook his head. In that case, the most suspicious ones are indeed the Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers. Qin Feiyang muttered. The 10 Great Elders are also possible. Zhao Xiaojin said. Qin Feiyang nodded and then transmitted his voice. The biggest suspect is still the Vice Alliance Master. Because he colluded with the Blood Hall. This proves that he has bad intentions. That's right. Let's start with this person. Madman secretly said. Why are you guys exchanging glances over there? Is there something that you don't want me to know? Fire Dragon glared at Qin Feiyang and the other two. No. Just thinking about various hypotheses. Then come back with us first. I also promise you that if there is a chance, I will definitely help you investigate. Qin Feiyang smiled. Go back to do what? Fire Dragon frowned. Go back and cultivate well. With your cultivation, even if you find out the person who secretly harmed your parents and the Alliance Master, do you have the ability to avenge them? Qin Feiyang smiled. Fire Dragon was silent. Let's go. Wandering around outside like a headless fly all day long won't yield any results. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. All right. Fire Dragon nodded and then said, but what I told you today, you must keep it a secret, especially the Vice Alliance Master and the others. You don't need to remind us. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, by the way, you didn't go to the trial ground for sightseeing, right? And I went to find the Alliance Master and my parents. Not only the trial ground, I searched the entire Azure Wave Snow Mountain, but I didn't find any clues. Fire Dragon sighed, his expression full of worry. You are too naive. Even if they are still alive, the culprit can't hide them in the Azure Wave Snow Mountain. Qin Feiyang shook his head. In any case, I still think that Demon Palace is the most suspicious. Fire Dragon coldly snorted. Don't jump to conclusions too early. The truth is often beyond your imagination. Let's go. Qin Feiyang smiled and opened an altar. The group jumped up one after another. Azure Wave Snow Mountain. When Qin Feiyang and the others arrived at the boundary, they happened to see a group of people coming out of the boundary. This group of people was led by the Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers, followed by the 9 Elders. They were all emitting a murderous aura. And when the two groups met, they were all a little stunned. Master, where are you going? Qin Feiyang was the first to speak. We are going to save it. Why is it with you? The Vice Alliance Master pointed at the Fire Dragon and said in shock. Qin Feiyang and the others nodded in realization. It turned out that these big shots had mobilized so many people to rescue the Fire Dragon. What a coincidence. Qin Feiyang was about to speak. Buzz. But at this time, the voice of the Divine Sound Transmission Stone sounded. Everyone looked at the Vice Alliance Master. The Vice Alliance Master took out the Divine Sound Transmission Stone, and a shadow suddenly appeared. It was Zhuo Tiansheng. Looking at the Vice Alliance Master, Zhuo Tiansheng immediately said excitedly, Master, the Fire Dragon has been rescued. You don't have to come. As for the people who rescued the Fire Dragon, I guess you will never guess. He even deliberately kept them in suspense. It should be Mo Yuanyuan and Mo Wuhui. The Vice Alliance Master glanced at Qin Feiyang and Frenzy standing opposite him, and said lightly, How do you know? Zhuo Tiansheng was stunned. They are standing in front of me now. And you, since you reported it in time, I will also record your merit. The Vice Alliance Master said. Thank you, Master. When Zhuo Tiansheng heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. The Vice Alliance Master nodded and turned off the divine sound transmission stone. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and frowned. What is going on? It's like this. Zhao Xiaojin asked us to accompany her back to pay respects to her parents and brother. Qin Feiyang gave a simple explanation of the speech that he had prepared beforehand. So that's how it is. The group of big shots suddenly understood. Then, the Vice Alliance Master looked at Fire Dragon and said angrily, "Why did you go to the Demon Palace? Don't you know our relationship with the Demon Palace? This time, you were lucky to have met Mo Yuan and the others. Otherwise, even if we rushed over to save you immediately, you would have already died in the hands of the Demon Palace." I know. Huolong had an impatient look on his face. You're still not happy with a few words of advice? The Vice Alliance Master also had a helpless look on his face. Don't say too much. It's fine as long as you come back safely. On the other hand, our two disciples have made a great contribution. How do you think we should reward them? The Hall of Famers chuckled. Indeed, we should reward them. The Vice Alliance Master nodded, looked at Qin Feiyang and Frenzy and laughed. Tell me, what do you want? Is there even a need to say it? It must be a supreme-level heaven-defying divine object. Frenzy chuckled. Ugh. The Vice Alliance Master and Frenzy were stunned. They then turned around and looked at the 9 great elders. There's nothing else, let's go back. All right. The 9 great elders nodded and looked at Frenzy in amusement. They then turned around and entered the barrier, leaving like lightning. The Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers ignored Qin Feiyang and Frenzy and left without looking back. Old man, what do you mean? Didn't you say you wanted a reward? What kind of attitude is this? Frenzy hurriedly shouted. Stop shouting. Even the Vice Alliance Master and Hall Master only have one supreme-level heaven-defying divine artifact. How can they give it to you? Fire Dragon, shut up. Even if you don't have one, you can still change the reward. It's not like you have to have a supreme-level heaven-defying divine object. Frenzy had a look of displeasure. Let's go, what's there to complain about? Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He stepped into the barrier and nodded to Zhang Diyuan beside him. Then he left. What do you call that? Right, greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. It's like drawing water with a sieve. Zhao Xiaojin glanced at Frenzy with schadenfreude, and also left. Black Dragon, Fire Luan and Fire Dragon all had smiles on their faces. Frenzy looked at the 2 men and 3 beasts angrily and glanced at Zhang Diyuan. Seeing that he was also forcefully holding back his laughter, he said angrily, What are you laughing at? Do you believe that I'll get old man Qi to cripple you? Zhang Diyuan's expression stiffened and he quickly waved his hand. No, we're all on the same side. Let's talk nicely. Emph. Madman snorted through his nose and left as well. Zhang Diyuan finally couldn't hold it in and laughed. However, there was a trace of fear in his eyes that was even stronger than before. The rise of these 2 brothers was already unstoppable. Being controlled by this child might not be a bad thing. Chapter 32:12. Returning to the Hall of the Exalted, Zhao Xiaojin glanced at Yi Tian's cave abode number 1, sighed, and entered cave abode number 2. Qin Feiyang and Madman were about to enter as well, but seeing the Fire Dragon still following them, they couldn't help but frown. Why aren't you going back? Why are you following us? Madman looked at it suspiciously. I'm all alone now. If I don't follow you, who should I follow? The Fire Dragon looked at the 2 with a pitiful look. You're still all alone? Take a look for yourself. Who has a higher status than you in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? Madman rolled his eyes. What's the use of having a status? They're all polite to me on the surface, but who knows what they'll do behind my back? I'm worried and scared now. I'm worried about my parents and the Alliance leader. I'm afraid that they'll plot against me too. So, I have to find a backer. The Fire Dragon sighed. Madman was stunned and speechless. If you want to find a backer, you should find an expert like the Vice Alliance leader. What kind of backer are my brother and I? We're just 2 half-step sovereigns. You guys aren't much, but they're strong. The Fire Dragon pointed at Black Dragon and Fire Luan and chuckled. Qin Feiyang and Madman shook their heads and smiled bitterly. It seemed that this guy was going to rely on them. All right then, you can stay in cave abode number 4 for the time being. Brother Black Dragon, Brother Fire Luan, you two accompany it so that it won't be worried all day. Qin Feiyang looked at Black Dragon and Fire Luan and said, accompany it? Doesn't that mean we have to protect it and be its personal bodyguards? Black Dragon was a little reluctant. Don't say that. We're brothers. Don't be so distant. We'll share blessings and misfortunes together. The Fire Dragon smiled flatteringly. Who's your brother? Both Black Dragon and Fire Luan had a look of disdain. Do you guys still have any humanity? I've already fallen to such a state. Can't you guys be understanding? Is it true that a tiger will be bullied by dogs? The Fire Dragon said angrily. Who are you calling a dog? Why don't you try cursing again? The Black Dragon and the Black Dragon immediately glared at the Fire Dragon. I'm just making an analogy. Don't worry, I won't let you guys protect me for nothing. When I find my parents and the Alliance Master, I promise you guys will enjoy endless glory and wealth. The Fire Dragon chuckled. Cough cough. Do we look like those snobbish divine beasts? What we care about is friendship. Isn't it just protecting you? How simple is that? Let's go, let's go. In the future, the two of us will be inseparable from you. That's right, that's right. In the future, don't mention any benefits to us. Glory and wealth. Otherwise, I'll fall out with you. Black Dragon and Fire Lotus angrily rebuked, then put their arms around Fire Dragon's shoulders and walked towards cave abode number 4 like good brothers. In the end, it was the Fire Dragon who was stunned. Why did he change his attitude faster than flipping a book? Sigh. This daddy has finally seen what is called shameless. These two guys are even worse than the white-eyed wolf. Madman's face was dark. Qin Feiyang also couldn't help but feel depressed. Why were all the beasts he encountered like this? Let's go. Madman turned around and entered the cave abode. Qin Feiyang also entered the cave abode. With a wave of his hand, the Law of Thunder appeared and sealed the door. Old Qin, do you think the disappearance of the Alliance Master and the Fire Dragon's parents is really related to the Vice Alliance Master? Madman sat beside the tea table and asked with a frown while making tea. This matter is really hard to say. Although the Vice Alliance Master is the most suspicious, others are also possible. Qin Feiyang pondered. Sigh, the situation is somewhat beyond our expectations. I have a feeling that if we really help the Fire Dragon, then we will most likely be involved in an even bigger dispute. Madman shook his head and sighed. I also have the same feeling. However, no matter who is related to this matter, it will be beneficial for us. Qin Feiyang said. What benefits? Madman poured a cup of tea and pushed it in front of Qin Feiyang and asked. Think about it. If the Alliance Master is really killed or imprisoned somewhere, then after we find out the truth, we will be his benefactor. At that time, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance will definitely help us with all their strength, coupled with the support of the Demon Palace. Then we will truly have the capital to contend with the Blood Palace. Qin Feiyang said as he drank his tea. His eyes flickered with a bright light. Makes sense. Madman nodded and also took a sip of tea. He asked, then should we keep an eye on the Vice Alliance Master all day long? It's not easy to keep an eye on the Vice Alliance Master. If he released his divine sense on a whim and discovered us, then we will lose our lives. But if we don't keep an eye on him, we won't be able to find out the truth. Qin Feiyang was also in a difficult position for a moment. Madman pondered for a while, then his eyes suddenly lit up. How about this, let's pull Yi Tian in. Pull Yi Tian in. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yi Tian is his grandson. Even if he lives with him for a long time, he won't suspect anything. And as long as we can live under the same roof as him, then we will definitely be able to find out something. Madman's eyes flashed. That's not good. What if Yi Tian leaks it? Qin Feiyang frowned. So this is a gamble? Madman said. This gamble is too big, let's forget it. Qin Feiyang shook his head. After all, they were grandfather and grandson. If Yi Tian leaked it, then the situation would be even worse. Then can you think of a better way? Madman asked. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then let out a long breath and said, no matter how perfect a person is, There will be a time when they reveal a flaw. Let's wait patiently. Wait, Madman frowned. Mo Yuan and Mo Wuhui, are you guys here? Suddenly, a voice came from outside. Third Xing. Qin Feiyang and Madman were stunned. They quickly got up and dispersed the thunder law that was blocking the door. You're all here. Third Xing looked at the two and smiled. What are you doing? Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. Third Xing took out 2 metal boxes and said with a smile, "This is a reward from the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers." Reward? Qin Feiyang and Madman were stunned. They hurriedly went forward and took the metal boxes. I heard the two of you say that these are 2 legendary-level heaven-defying artifacts. Frankly speaking, I'm a little envious of you guys. How long have you been in the Alliance? You've already gotten so many legendary-level heaven-defying artifacts. Third Xing shook his head. Haha. Madman smiled proudly and said, that can only mean that our ability is outstanding. Third Xing laughed involuntarily and nodded. Your ability is indeed obvious to all, but you should have heard of the saying, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other with a trace of suspicion in their eyes. Why did Third Xing suddenly say this? Don't misunderstand, I'm not referring to our rogue cultivator alliance, but other forces such as the Devil Palace. If they know of your talent, I'm afraid they won't let you grow so easily. So when you leave the Azure Wave Snow Mountain in the future, you must remember to keep a low profile. Third Xing warned. You scared me. I thought that someone from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance wanted to deal with us. Madman patted his chest. One of you is the Vice Alliance leader's disciple, the other is the Hall of Famer's disciple, who would dare to deal with you. All right. I'll go back and report. Good luck. Third Xing smiled, turned around and soared into the air, disappearing from Qin Feiyang and Madman's line of sight like lightning. Qin Feiyang and Madman also couldn't wait to return to the cave and open the metal boxes. Immediately, rays of dazzling divine light surged out from the metal boxes. There were 2 metal boxes, one containing a neat set of armor, and the other containing a fiery red long sword. They are indeed legendary-level heaven-defying artifacts. Madman's eyes were filled with excitement. Qin Feiyang asked, last time the Hall of Famers gave you a weapon or armor? Weapon, Madman secretly said. The Vice Alliance leader gave me a piece of armor back then. In other words, this armor should be given to you, and this long sword should be given to me. In this way our defense and attack are both complete. Qin Feiyang secretly smiled. I didn't expect these 2 old men to be so attentive. Madman bared his teeth. It seems that they really treat us as their personal disciples. Qin Feiyang sighed. Then if we still investigate them now, wouldn't it seem that we are too heartless? Madman secretly asked. That's a different matter. If there is no problem with them, we will definitely respect them and love them. But if there is a problem, then we can only be heartless people. Qin Feiyang shook his head. All right. Madman nodded and said with a smile, this armor is mine. After saying that, he dripped his blood to recognize it as his master. Qin Feiyang also took out a long sword and dripped his blood to recognize it as his master. This sword was 3 feet long and 3 fingers wide. Its hilt was shaped like a qilin, so it was called the Qilin Divine Sword. After Madman dripped his blood to recognize it as his master, he smiled and said, now it's time to tame them. Of course. Qin Feiyang smiled. Legendary-level heaven-defying artifacts had their own consciousness. So just dripping blood to recognize them as their master wasn't enough. They had to make these 2 artifacts follow them wholeheartedly. Swish. The 2 entered the Black Tortoise world, and directly laid their cards on the table, without any hesitation. The process was similar to when Qin Feiyang first tamed the Spectre Battle Armor. At first, the 2 artifacts were shocked when they found out about Qin Feiyang and Madman's identity. They also hid something in their hearts. But when they found out that the Black Tortoise world was an independent world, and they could even cultivate in the Source Land, they immediately became as obedient as a lamb. Time flew by. Outside, half a year had passed. And in the Black Tortoise world, more than 100,000 years had passed. With Madman's help, Qin Feiyang finally comprehended the 4th profound of the Law of Slaughter, But he had no clue about the fifth profound of the law of cause and effect. Qin Feiyang also didn't force it. And on this day half a year later, suddenly, a shocking piece of news came from the Demon Hall. The four superforces of the Sky Cloud world, Demon Palace, Blood Palace, Sky Palace, Deity's Palace, and the slightly weaker Rogue Cultivator Alliance, were going to hold an exchange meeting 3 days later. Of course, anyone with a bit of brain knew that this so-called exchange meeting was definitely not as simple as an exchange meeting. Chapter 32:13. Naturally, the Hall of the Exalted was also talking about this. Our Rogue Cultivator Alliance is actually going to participate in the exchange. Devil Hall, Heavenly Hall, Immortal Hall, Blood Hall. Which one of them isn't stronger than us? Aren't we just asking for humiliation if we join in the fun? Not only the ordinary members, but even the disciples of the Hall of the Exalted had no confidence in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Of course, there were also people who supported it. The current Rogue Cultivator Alliance was already the super overlord of the Eastern continent. Could they have some dignity and not boost the morale of others while diminishing their own prestige? Besides, this was not a battle between the higher-ups, but a competition between the younger generation. What was there to be afraid of? The reason why the four major forces were strong was because they had the Sovereign Divine Weapon. If the Rogue Cultivator Alliance also had the Sovereign Divine Weapon, they might not be weaker than the four major forces. As the situation became more and more intense, two factions began to fight over this matter. One faction, led by the Hall of Famers, did not support the participation of the exchange. The other faction, led by the vice leader, supported the participation of the exchange. What? It will start in 3 days? At the same time, Qin Feiyang and Frenzy also received Elder Hua's message. They were quite shocked. This was too fast. After the announcement, no matter what, they should have more time to prepare. That's right. Elder Hua nodded. Then where is the location of the exchange? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Sky Cloud Ocean. You've been there before. It's the island where the little rabbit is. This place is called Sky Cloud Island, and the little rabbit is the referee of this exchange. Elder Hua said. The little rabbit is the referee? Qin Feiyang and Frenzy looked at each other. Don't underestimate the little rabbit. Its strength is not simple. Also, just this morning, a portrait appeared in various cities in the Eastern continent. Elder Hua could not help but frown as he said this. Portrait? Qin Feiyang and Frenzy were stunned. Yes. The appearance of this portrait is very strange. No one knows who spread it, and no one knows the person in the portrait, so I'm going to ask you. Elder Hua said. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other, and said to Elder Hua, let us see. Elder Hua took out a portrait from his chest. In the portrait was a middle-aged man with a face full of vicissitudes. He was dressed in a black robe, with a tall and straight figure and a sharp gaze. The most eye-catching thing was that he was carrying a 1.5-meter-long broadsword on his back. It's him. Looking at the portrait, Qin Feiyang and the madman's eyes trembled. You really do know each other. Elder Hua's eyes flickered as he asked, who is he? However, Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear to him, and stared at the middle-aged man on the screen. Their faces were extremely gloomy. They were all too familiar with this face, and they would never forget it for the rest of their lives. Because the person in the portrait was the Sword Emperor. Since his portrait had appeared in all the major cities of the Eastern continent, it must have been done by the Blood Hall. Who is it? Elder Hua looked at them suspiciously. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and looked at Elder Hua. Do you know our purpose in coming to the Sky Cloud realm? Elder Hua shook his head. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, one of our purposes in coming to the Sky Cloud realm is to rescue the person in the portrait. This? Elder Hua was stunned and asked. You mean this person is your companion? That's right. When we were in the lower realm, someone kidnapped 4 of our companions. This person is called the Sword Emperor, and he was one of them. Qin Feiyang nodded. Was it Elder Hai from the Blood Hall who kidnapped them? Elder Hua asked. No, but it's related to the Blood Hall. And now, as soon as the exchange conference was announced, the portrait of the Sword Emperor appeared in all the major cities of the Eastern continent. Do you know why? The Blood Hall is using the Sword Emperor to threaten us and force us to participate in the exchange conference. If we don't go, they will kill the Sword Emperor. Qin Feiyang's face sank. He and Frenzied had already thought that the Blood Hall would definitely try to force them to show up, but they didn't expect that they would use such a method. I see. Elder Hu nodded in realization, but then he shook his head and said, "The Blood Hall is really despicable. What are you going to do now?" "What else can we do? We can only participate," Qin Feiyang said. "Since the Blood Hall has carefully planned this scheme, they will definitely do something in the exchange conference. I'm afraid that you will be in danger if you go." Elder Hu was a little worried. "Even if we lose our lives, we must go." Qin Feiyang's eyes were firm. No matter what, he had to ensure the safety of the Sword Emperor and the other three. Elder Hu asked, "Then are you going to participate as the Rogue Cultivator Alliance's Hall of Fame disciples, or as our Devil Hall's core disciples?" "Logically speaking, we will definitely participate as your Devil Hall's core disciples. After all, you have already announced that we are Devil Hall's disciples." But, when Qin Feiyang said this, he couldn't help but frown. "Are you worried about exposing Mo Wuyuan and Mo Wuhui's identities?" Elder Hu asked. "That's right. My Karma Law and senior brother Fengzi's Death Law have already been exposed. When we participate in the exchange conference, we will definitely have to go all out against the Blood Hall, Heavenly Hall, and Divine Hall's disciples. At that time, the Karma Law, Death Law, and other laws will be exposed. It will definitely arouse the suspicion of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Why is it that the power of law that Mo Yuan and Mo Wuhui control is exactly the same as the power of law that Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo control? If that's the case, they will naturally think that we might be Mo Wuyuan and Mo Wuhui." Qin Feiyang said. "That makes sense." Elder Hu nodded. "It doesn't matter if our identities are exposed. I'm just worried that it won't be easy to investigate the Alliance Master's whereabouts in the future." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Now that the situation is urgent, why do we still care about the Alliance Master?" Fengzi stared at Qin Feiyang. "Phew." Qin Feiyang let out a long breath and nodded. "Then let's do it." Although the Alliance Master was stronger than the Sword Emperor and the other three, in terms of importance to Qin Feiyang, even 100 Alliance Masters added together couldn't compare to the Sword Emperor and the other three. Elder Hu glanced at the two and sighed. "To be honest, even if you participate in the exchange conference, you won't be able to solve the root of the problem. I know. Even if we escape this calamity, the Blood Hall can still use the Sword Emperor and the other three to threaten us. So if we want to completely eradicate them, we have to save them from the Blood Hall. My original plan was to find the Alliance Master and resolve the internal strife of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. At that time, we will unite the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Devil Hall. This way, the chances of saving them will be greater. But I didn't expect the Blood Hall to be so impatient and not give me any time to prepare." Qin Feiyang sighed. "It's not the Blood Hall's fault. It's your fault." Elder Hu shook his head. "Blame us?" Fengzi was stunned. "That's right. You have displayed such amazing talent and ability. Not to mention the Blood Hall. Even my Devil Hall can feel threatened. The Blood Hall naturally won't allow you to continue growing like this." Elder Hu shook his head and smiled. "From what you said, being talented is also a mistake." Fengzi was stunned. "What do you think?" Elder Hu chuckled. "Sigh. Looks like I can't be so outstanding in my next life." Fengzi was speechless. The corner of Elder Hu's mouth twitched and he smiled. "All right then. Prepare yourselves. With your current cultivation, let alone the Blood Hall, I'm afraid you won't even be able to defeat the core disciples of the four major forces." "Then how strong are the core disciples of the four major forces?" Fengzi was curious. The core disciples of the four major forces are actually similar to the disciples of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance's Hall of Fame. Once their cultivation reaches the greater mastery stage, their disciples' names will be removed. So, the strongest disciples participating in this competition are only at the lesser mastery stage. However, the Sovereign Realm is different from the Imperishable Realm. You can use all kinds of methods to fight those in the Imperishable Realm, but not in the Sovereign Realm. That's because the key to the sovereign realm is the power of laws. For example, the divine art that increases your cultivation is useless in the sovereign realm. Elder Hua said. Useless? Qin Feiyang and Fengzi raised their brows. That's right. The sovereign realm increases one's cultivation by comprehending the power of laws. The divine art that increases your cultivation is just an ordinary divine art, so it can't increase the cultivation of sovereigns. Taking a step back, even if it can increase one's cultivation, like you Qin Feiyang, who can reach the lesser mastery stage with the help of the divine art, what's the use? In the end, you've only grasped 1/5 profound, while a true lesser mastery stage sovereign grasps 3/5 profound. I don't think I need to explain the difference between 1/5 profound meaning and 3/5 profound meanings. I'm sure all of you are aware of it. Elder Hua smiled. When Qin Feiyang and Fengzi heard this, they couldn't help but frown. In the past, they had thought that when they reached the half-step sovereign realm, with the rising dragon art and blood devil domain, they would definitely be able to fight against lesser mastery stage sovereigns, and even greater mastery stage sovereigns. However, when they heard Elder Hua's words, they realized how naive they were. There was a fundamental difference between the sovereign realm and the imperishable realm. The sovereign realm comprehended the power of laws. Below the imperishable realm, it increased the strength of one's divine power and divine soul. The two couldn't be mixed together. What about the other divine arts? Qin Feiyang asked. Ordinary divine arts don't have much effect in the sovereign realm, unless it's a heaven-defying divine art. Of course, there are exceptions. For example, your concealment divine art. This kind of pure support type divine art doesn't have much effect. Elder Hua explained. The key is that the concealment divine art doesn't have much effect in battle. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Unless the opponent was weaker than him, the concealment divine art would be forcefully destroyed by the opponent's aura. Therefore, the two of you have to be prepared. Ignoring everything else, at least try to raise your cultivation to lesser mastery stage before the battle. Only then will you have a chance of winning, Elder Hua said. All right. Lesser mastery stage. Qin Feiyang and Fengzi lowered their heads and remained silent. Chapter 32:14. Also, it's best to raise your law of death and law of cause and effect. Because only these two laws can suppress the core disciples of the three forces. Elder Hua added. You know my law of death? Frenzy was stunned. Qin Feiyang's law of cause and effect wasn't a secret to Elder Hua, but Frenzy's law of death was only revealed recently. Furthermore, it was in the Hall of Fame. If the Rogue Cultivator Alliance can bribe our Demon Hall's elder, then our Demon Hall naturally has the ability to do so. So is it difficult to know your situation? Elder Hua smiled proudly. All right. Frenzy nodded. The disputes between these forces were really complicated. Old Qin, I have already comprehended the fourth profound of the law of death, but I can't figure out the fifth one. Isn't there some law of life and death in your 6-word divine art? Can you give me some hints? Frenzy turned to look at Qin Feiyang and asked. I was hoping for you to give me some hints. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Until now, he still couldn't figure out if the law of life and death in the 6-word divine art was the law of life and death. Looks like I can't count on you. Frenzy shook his head and smiled. Then I can only look for your master. Up to you. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The deputy leader also grasped the law of death. If he was willing to help Frenzy, then it would indeed be an opportunity for Frenzy. However, Frenzy's problem was easy to solve, but what about his law of cause and effect? No one in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance grasped the law of cause and effect. Elder Hua laughed. Regarding the law of cause and effect, this old man can give you some pointers. Please tell me. Qin Feiyang's spirit rose when he heard this. My Demon Hall's Hall Master grasped the law of cause and effect. Elder Hua smiled. This Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why didn't you say so earlier? Frenzy frowned. If he had said so earlier, then Qin Feiyang would have gone to the Demon Hall's Hall Master, and might have already comprehended the fifth profound. Qin Feiyang didn't display the law of cause and effect at the start. Elder Hua pouted. Unreliable old bastard. Madman muttered. What are you mumbling about? Elder Hua was suspicious. Of course I'm saying that you're a person of virtue and prestige who is revered by tens of thousands of people. Do you think I'd say anything bad about you? Madman chuckled. Do you think this old man is that stupid? Elder He rolled his eyes. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, if you really want to consult the hall master, this old man can help you ask. Then I'll leave it to you. Qin Feiyang was very grateful. Elder He smiled, and the shadow disappeared. Then there's no time to lose. Shall I go and look for the Vice Alliance leader now? Madman asked. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded, and then reminded him, since you're asking for advice, you should have a good attitude. I know what I'm doing. Don't worry. Madman waved his hand impatiently. Qin Feiyang shook his head and waved his hand, sending Madman out. Although Madman had become a disciple of the Hall of Famers, with his talent and comprehension, the Vice Alliance leader shouldn't make things difficult for him. Now he was the only one left. Would the Demon Hall Master agree to help him? He pondered over the Karma Law while waiting patiently. Black Tortoise World. Day after day passed. On the morning of the 10th day, Qin Feiyang's voice transmission Godstone finally reacted. He quickly took it out, but he was happy for nothing. The person who sent the message was Madman. At this moment he was standing in a room, and his eyes were filled with excitement. He agreed? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Under this old man's relentless efforts, he finally agreed to personally guide me. Madman smiled proudly and asked, what about you? Any response from the other side? Not yet. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Don't give up. Good luck. After saying that, Madman turned off the voice transmission Godstone. Who are you talking to? At this moment, the Vice Alliance leader walked into the room with his walking stick. With your disciple. Tell him the good news. You agreed to teach me. Madman chuckled. You two little fellows. The Vice Alliance leader shook his head and sighed. It's a pity that you didn't become my disciple. Madman immediately became emotional. Although we aren't master and disciple in name, in my heart, I have always treated you as my master. Glib tongue. The Vice Alliance leader laughed and said, follow this lord to the secret room so that no one will disturb you. Secret room? Madman was stunned. There was actually a secret room hidden here? When Madman followed the Vice Alliance leader to a well in the backyard, the Vice Alliance leader stepped on the ground, and the neat ground immediately cracked open. A secret passage slowly appeared. Next, Madman followed the Vice Alliance leader into the secret passage. The secret passage spiraled downwards. After walking for about half a mile, two stone doors finally appeared in front of them. This is where this lord used to cultivate in seclusion. No one will disturb us here. The Vice Alliance leader chuckled and opened one of the stone doors. A secret room about 100 feet wide appeared in front of Madman's eyes. Inside the secret room, there was nothing but an old cushion. It seemed extremely empty. Then whose cultivation room is this? Madman glanced at the secret room, and then looked at the closed stone door on the side, and asked curiously, this cultivation room? The Vice Alliance leader looked at the stone door with a trace of pain in his eyes. This is my son's cultivation room. Your son, isn't that Brother Ye's father? Madman was stunned. That's right. However, after my son's death, this cultivation room has never been opened again. The reason for that is because his memorial tablet is currently enshrined in this place. The Vice Alliance leader sighed deeply and entered the secret room. Brother Ye's father is dead? How did he die? And what about his mother? Could it be? Madman hurriedly followed in and asked in surprise. You guessed right, they are both dead. Moreover, they have been dead for many years. Let's not talk about it. Sit down. I'll explain the secrets of the laws of death to you. The Vice Alliance leader shook his head and pointed at the cushion. All right. Madman nodded and suppressed the doubts in his heart. He sat on the cushion and listened attentively to the Vice Alliance leader's explanation. Black Tortoise World. Another 10 days passed. The divine sound transmission stone rang once more. Qin Feiyang hurriedly took it out and activated it. A fiery red figure appeared. Who else could it be but Elder He? How is it? Qin Feiyang immediately asked. Even though 20 days had passed in the Black Tortoise World, only a short while had passed outside. The Hall Master agreed to help you. Come to Black Phoenix Mountain. We'll wait for you there. Elder Hua smiled. Black Phoenix Mountain? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Black Phoenix Mountain is near Cloudsea City. After saying that, Elder Hua told Qin Feiyang the coordinates. I'll go right away. Qin Feiyang nodded and immediately left the Black Tortoise world. He found Black Dragon and asked him to bring him to the border, because with his half-step ruler cultivation, it would take him around an hour to travel from the Hall of the Exalted to the border. But Black Dragon was different. He could bring him there in a dozen breaths of time. At the border, after Zhang De Yuan opened the barrier, Qin Feiyang looked at Black Dragon and said with a smile, "This is a private matter. You don't have to follow me." All right. Black Dragon didn't ask what private matter it was. He nodded and left. Qin Feiyang also disappeared at the end of the snow mountain. After leaving the Azure Wave Snow Mountain, he took out the Gate of Space and appeared above Black Phoenix Mountain. Black Phoenix Mountain. The mountain was like its name. It was like a black divine phoenix that emitted a majestic aura. At a certain spot on the mountain peak, two figures were standing side by side. One of them was Elder Hua, and the other was a woman around 30 years old. She wore a long dress and looked graceful and luxurious. Elder Hua. Qin Feiyang landed on the mountain peak and cupped his fists with a smile. You're here. Elder Hua turned and looked at Qin Feiyang. The woman also turned around slowly, revealing a face that wasn't inferior to the girl's. Her skin was crystal clear, her figure exquisite, and there weren't any crow's feet at the corner of her eyes. She exuded the charm of a mature woman. She's our Demon Hall's Hall Master, Elder Hua explained. Junior Qin Feiyang greets Lord Hall Master. Qin Feiyang bowed. Elder Hua has been paying attention to you since you entered the Sky Cloud realm. He has repeatedly praised you. At first, I thought he was exaggerating. But when you showed your talent in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and revealed 7 types of law force, I realized that Elder Hua wasn't wrong. You're a talent. The Demon Hall's Hall Master smiled and looked very amiable. Hall Master, you flatter me. I'm just fooling around. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. Whether it's fooling around or not, everyone knows in their hearts. Let's not talk about it. I can explain the law of cause and effect to you, but you have to agree to one condition. The Demon Hall's Hall Master said. I'm all ears. Qin Feiyang had expected that the Demon Hall's Hall Master wouldn't agree to help him so easily, so he wasn't surprised at all. Officially become a core disciple of my Demon Hall, the Demon Hall's Hall Master said. Qin Feiyang was stunned and frowned. Didn't I tell Elder Hua that I'll participate in the exchange as a core disciple of the Demon Hall? Although you'll participate in the exchange as a core disciple of the Demon Hall, you're still not a disciple of my Demon Hall. I believe you can understand my difficulties. As the Demon Hall's Hall Master, I can't nurture someone who doesn't belong to the Demon Hall. The Hall Master smiled. Qin Feiyang fell silent. There must be a reason why you've repeatedly rejected our invitations, right? The Demon Hall's Hall Master looked at Qin Feiyang questioningly. That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, Since we're here, I'll be direct. I haven't accepted Elder Hua's invitation because I still can't truly trust your Demon Hall. You're very direct. Not only was the Hall Master not angry, but he even praised Xiaochen. Firstly, I believe Hall Master is aware of my background. Secondly, I have a sovereign weapon and an independent world. You must know that. Qin Feiyang said. That's right. Back then, when Chu Yin rushed to the Heavenly Cloud Ocean to save you, she saw you using origin energy to fight against the Blood Hall's 3 sovereign weapons. We already thought of this back then. The Demon Hall's Hall Master nodded. Chapter 32:15. Since you've already thought of it, why don't you put yourself in my shoes? If it's you, who has an independent world and a sovereign divine weapon, but your own strength isn't that great, how can you not guard against outsiders? Qin Feiyang said. I have to guard against them. The Hall Master nodded. That's why I don't dare to enter the Demon Palace. Because I just came to the Sky Cloud realm and know nothing about the Demon Palace. What if you have other motives? Wouldn't I be a sheep in a tiger's den? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. What about now? Do you know something about the Demon Palace? The Hall Master asked. Over the years, I've been paying attention to the people of the Eastern Continent's evaluation of the Demon Palace. Overall, there's no problem. However, it's still the same thing. Everyone knows how to hide things. For example, the vice leader. During the time I spent with him, he was very kind and treated me like his own son. You would never expect him to be someone who colluded with the Blood Hall. But that's the truth. So what's the Demon Palace like? I can't make a judgment yet. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Thank you for your honesty. Then we might as well interact more in the future. As the saying goes, time reveals a person's heart. The Hall Master smiled faintly. Sure. I can also agree to officially join the Demon Palace. However, you can't restrict my freedom, and you have to trust me unconditionally. In other words, no matter what I do, no matter what position I stand on, you have to support me. Of course. I'm also a person with principles. Since I've agreed to join the Demon Palace, I definitely won't do anything that will harm the Demon Palace's interests. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. The Hall Master nodded and said, however, I have an additional condition. Speak. Qin Feiyang smiled. Madman Mo also has to join the Demon Palace. The Hall Master said. Actually, you don't have to do this. Senior brother Feng Zi and I have gone through life and death together. We've long trusted each other without a doubt. Our relationship is even closer than that of blood brothers. We have been through life and death together. So, as long as one of us joins your Devil Palace, the other one will become a member of your Devil Palace. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. I like honest young people like you. The Devil Hall Master was very happy. It was the same for Elder Hua. After struggling for so long, he finally managed to convince these two brats to join the Devil Hall. The people of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance did not know Qin Feiyang's background, but he knew it very well. The addition of these two people was definitely the Devil Hall's fortune. Qin Feiyang said. Junior will ask another question. In the future, if we go to war with the Blood Hall, what will your Devil Hall choose? This was the main point. As long as he had the full support of the Demonic Palace, he would have the ability to truly contend against the Blood Palace. The Blood Hall has always been our Devil Hall's enemy. The Demon Hall Master smiled. Qin Feiyang also smiled. That was enough for him. Of course. We also hope that you all will treat our Demon Hall well. The Demon Hall Master smiled again. Whether it was Qin Feiyang or Madman Mo, they would definitely have amazing achievements in the future. They might even surpass them. At that time, if the two of them turned against each other, it would undoubtedly be a nightmare for the Devil Hall. So, since Qin Feiyang had made it clear, she would not hide it anymore. Didn't I say just now that I will not harm the Devil Hall? I will not do anything that will harm the interests of the Demon Halls. This promise is not just temporary but eternal. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Okay. The Demon Hall Master smiled happily and asked, can you take us to your world for a tour? Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded. With a wave of his hand, the three of them immediately appeared in the sky above the Devil's Land. What rich energy of the Spirit Vein and Crystal Vein! As soon as the two of them appeared, they could not help but feel shocked when they sensed the majestic energy, especially when they looked at the boundless medicinal field. Even with their mentality, they couldn't help but feel a storm in their hearts. The resources were not much worse than the Devil Halls. Every herb, every soul vein, and every crystal vein here was obtained from the outside with our own efforts. In order to create such a cultivation environment, we went through countless dangers. But fortunately, the heavens did not let us down. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly with a trace of pride on his face. Amazing! The Demon Hall Master and Elder Hua were sincerely impressed. Of course. The main reason is because of this. Qin Feiyang pointed at the ancient castle below. The Demon Hall Master and Elder Hua looked down and their eyes widened. A sovereign divine weapon. It can be said that without the ancient castle, the Black Tortoise world would not be where it is today, and we would not be here today. Qin Feiyang looked at the ancient castle with gratitude in his eyes. The ancient castle was one of the people he was most grateful to in his life. It's rare for young people nowadays to be able to maintain a grateful heart. Elder Hua chuckled. Yeah. In today's world, who can be relied on when it comes to benefits. The most typical example is the Zhao family. Because of their selfishness, they even harmed Zhao Xiaojin. The demon hall master shook his head and sighed. We can't generalize. Whether it's humans or beasts, they are both good and bad. Qin Feiyang smiled. You're very thorough. The demon hall master nodded. Then he scanned the courtyard beside the ancient castle and asked, Are the people in those courtyards your friends? That's right. There are relatives, companions, and former enemies. Qin Feiyang smiled. Enemies? The demon hall master and Elder Hua were stunned. Why would their enemies let them stay in the Black Tortoise world? My relationship with them is very complicated. I can't explain it in a short time. Anyway, it's fine as long as we have the same goal. Qin Feiyang smiled. The people he was talking about were naturally Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, and the demon ancestor. Can I understand it as being enemies but not enemies? Like friends but not friends? The demon hall master asked. I guess so. After all, no one can predict what happens in the world. Qin Feiyang nodded. Actually, this is the other side of karma. The demon hall master smiled. The other side? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. The so-called karma itself is intricate and complicated. It's like invisible threads that bind both parties together. Initially, you might be enemies, but because of some relationship, you might become friends. Similarly, you might be friends at the beginning, but because of some reason, you might become enemies. In short, karma is everywhere. As long as you use your heart to feel it, you can feel it. The demon hall master smiled. You don't say. I really didn't think of this before. Qin Feiyang lowered his head. The fog in his mind seemed to be gradually dissipating. Swoosh. Suddenly, in the courtyard below, the mermaid princess flew up and bowed. Greetings, Elder Hua. It's you. Elder Hua looked at the mermaid princess with a smile on his face. Elder Hua had already seen the mermaid princess when they were in the space-time teleportation tunnel, so he had a deep impression of her. She is? The demon hall master was a little suspicious. She's the lover of Qin Feiyang that I told you about. Back then, in order to save her, Qin Feiyang fought Old Man Hai in the space-time teleportation tunnel. That scene could really be said to be a scene of anger for a beauty. Elder Hua chuckled. I've embarrassed myself in front of you. The mermaid princess blushed. Qin Feiyang walked over and held the mermaid princess' hand. He smiled and said, This is the demon hall master. The mermaid princess was stunned. She quickly bowed and said, Greetings, Lord Hall Master. No need to be so polite. The Hall Master waved his hand. He glanced at the couple and then looked away. But suddenly, he looked at the mermaid princess again with a hint of surprise in his eyes. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang and the mermaid princess were a little confused. Do you control the law of life? The demon hall master asked in surprise. How did you know? The mermaid princess was surprised. I sensed it. There's an extraordinary life force in your body. Incredible. The law of life, the law of karma, and the law of death. You guys are really monstrous. The demon hall master shook his head and exclaimed. Elder Hua also looked at the mermaid princess in shock. Suddenly, he glanced at the courtyard below and said, Qin Feiyang, in the Wind Sea City, there was a person who controlled the law of space-time. Who is he to you? He's the ancestor of the Qin clan. Qin Feiyang smiled. The Qin clan? Looks like your clan isn't simple. Elder Hua said. Not at all. Qin Feiyang shook his head and looked at the mermaid princess. You go back first. I'll accompany them. Are you coming back for dinner tonight? The mermaid princess asked. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Then we'll have to see whether or not these two lords will dislike the simple and plain food you make. You little brat, do you have to mock us in such a roundabout way? Elder Hua couldn't help but laugh. Looks like the two lords don't dislike it. Then I'll have to trouble you. Qin Feiyang squeezed the mermaid princess's jade-like hand lovingly. The mermaid princess smiled and turned to leave. Elder Hua praised. She's a good wife and mother. Brat, you're lucky to have found such a gentle and kind woman. Yeah. Being able to marry her is the luckiest thing in my life. It's also the thing I'm most proud of. Qin Feiyang didn't hide his proud smile. Then lead the way. I'm looking forward to your Black Tortoise world more and more. The Devil Hall Master smiled. Then let's go to the North region. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and led the two of them to the north of the Devil's Land. North region? The two of them were suspicious. In the Black Tortoise world, other than the Devil's Land, there are 5 other regions. They are the North region, West region, South region, East region, and Central region. Qin Feiyang explained the situation of the Black Tortoise world as they walked. The 3 of them seemed to be taking a stroll as they wandered around. Chapter 32:16. As the number of spirit veins and crystal veins increased, the Black Tortoise world grew faster and faster. The current Black Tortoise world was almost twice the size of the Divine Land. One could only imagine. The Middle Continent, Western region, Northern region, Southern region, and Eastern region were so vast. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that anyone below the imperishable realm would need at least 100 years to traverse the entire Black Tortoise world. Of course, it would be a different story if the teleportation altar was activated. Northern region. In the sky above a city. The city wasn't small, spanning tens of thousands of miles. Tens of millions of people lived there, and their average cultivation was at the Divine Lord realm. The strongest aura was at the half-step imperishable realm. However, the most eye-catching thing was the statue in the middle of the city. It was Qin Feiyang's statue. All the cities we passed by along the way have your statues. What's going on? Elder Hua looked at the statue and asked curiously. There's a reason for that. Qin Feiyang smiled. What reason? Elder Hua was puzzled. Once, I sacrificed my life to revive all the living beings in the Black Tortoise world. And I've been silently protecting them. So out of gratitude, they made a statue for me. Actually, I didn't think it was necessary, but everyone was too enthusiastic and I couldn't stop them. Qin Feiyang laughed. You sacrificed your life to revive all the living beings? Elder Hua and the Demon Hall Master looked at each other. What kind of method was that? In short, every living being in the Black Tortoise world, whether it's a human or a beast, is greatly indebted to me. Because of their support, I have the ability to fight against the sovereign weapon. So once, I swore that as long as I, Qin Feiyang, am alive, I won't allow anyone to hurt them. Qin Feiyang said. Then have you noticed that this is actually karma? Because you're good to them, they'll never abandon you. The Demon Hall Master chuckled. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He carefully recalled the past, and the doubts in his mind seemed to become clearer. How did they help you? It actually gave you the power to fight against a sovereign weapon. Elder Ho was extremely curious. Qin Feiyang smiled. With a wave of his hand, the 3 of them appeared above the Blood Sea in the Western region. Where is this? The 2 of them were bewildered. What a strong smell of blood. This is the Western region of the Black Tortoise realm. The entire Western region is like this. Qin Feiyang smiled. You mean the entire Western region is a sea of blood? Elder Hua was bewildered. That's right. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and many images of various sizes appeared in the void in front of him. In the picture, there were humans and ferocious beasts. Everyone was lining up to donate blood on the shore of the Blood Sea. What? Seeing this scene, even with Elder Hua and Elder Hua's temperament, they could not help but be extremely shocked. That's right. Every drop of blood in this sea of blood was contributed by them selflessly. Qin Feiyang nodded. Why would they do that? Elder Hua was bewildered. Qin Feiyang's body shook and the slaughter domain appeared. A monstrous killing intent surged out as he said. This is the slaughter domain. It uses blood as the source. The more blood it absorbs, the stronger it becomes. When it reaches its peak, it can fight against a sovereign divine weapon. I see. Elder Hua was enlightened. When I was in the lower realm, the slaughter domain helped me through many calamities. And all of this is inseparable from the support of every living being in the Black Tortoise realm. Even if there is no war now, they are still silently donating blood for me. Tell me, after seeing this scene, would anyone with a conscience not be moved? Therefore, instead of saying that they are my people, it is better to say that they are Qin Feiyang's relatives. Qin Feiyang smiled as he looked at the ferocious beasts and humans in the picture. His eyes were filled with gratitude. The Devil Hall Master and Elder Hua looked at each other. They admired the young man in front of them more and more. The living beings of the Black Tortoise realm were willing to come to the western region to donate blood. It wasn't hard to imagine how good Qin Feiyang usually was to the living beings of the Black Tortoise realm. This is the so-called tit for tat, right? The Devil Hall Master smiled. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. The cycle of karma, the cycle of karma. These were all part of the law of karma. And tit for tat, he already knew about it. But at this moment, when he heard this from the Devil Hall Master, his feelings became different. It seemed to be more profound and thorough. Close your eyes and feel it. Actually, every living being in the Black Tortoise realm has an unbreakable karmic connection with you. The Devil Hall Master smiled. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he closed his eyes and calmed his heart. He entered a state of no desire. Then he released his perception and slowly felt it. The Devil Hall Master glanced at Qin Feiyang and turned to Elder Hua. He smiled and said, "Let's go. We will walk around ourselves." "What about him?" Elder Hua asked inwardly. His comprehension ability is really terrifying. Above the herb field, I vaguely mentioned the other side of the law of karma. He already comprehended it. Along the way, I kept reminding him. Although I didn't say it clearly, I could tell that he understood it. So now I don't need to say anything more. I will give him some time to comprehend it himself. The Devil Hall Master smiled inwardly and turned to leave quietly. Elder Hua glanced at Qin Feiyang and hurriedly chased after him. But is this enough? It definitely isn't enough for others. But Qin Feiyang is different. First of all, his comprehension ability is better than others. Second of all, he has too much karma in his life. Every blade of grass and every tree in the Black Tortoise realm has an unbreakable relationship with him. So, in terms of the law of karma, he has an innate advantage that others don't have. In other words, the entire Black Tortoise realm is his source. The Devil Hall Master smiled faintly. I don't understand. Elder Hua shook his head. If you did, you wouldn't have comprehended the law of time, but the law of karma. The law of karma focuses on cause and effect. It's very different from other laws. The Devil Hall Master chuckled. Elder Hua pondered for a while but still couldn't figure it out. So he decisively gave up. The power of laws couldn't be forced. It depended on fate and luck. Of course, one also had to have the comprehension ability. Back to Qin Feiyang. At this moment, there was nothing in his mind. He wasn't thinking about anything. He was like a person without consciousness. His perception had already spread to the entire Black Tortoise realm. Everything was in his eyes. He was the master of the Black Tortoise realm. As long as he was willing, no living being could hide anything from him. And others wouldn't be able to sense that they were being spied on. Although the living beings of the Black Tortoise realm were very united at critical times, there were still all kinds of disputes. For example, fighting for power, women, treasures, and some grudges. They would fight to the death. However, Qin Feiyang didn't care about any of this. He was like a passerby, silently looking at every living being and feeling the karma between them. Because no matter how united a place was, such disputes were inevitable. As long as everyone could unite in the face of the big picture. Of course, small fights were fine, but they couldn't affect the foundation of the Black Tortoise realm. Otherwise he wouldn't sit by and do nothing. Time quietly passed. In the evening, Elder Hua and the Devil Hall Master returned to the Devil's Land. After a day of asking around, they finally had a thorough understanding of Qin Feiyang. Basically, the living beings of the Black Tortoise realm knew about Qin Feiyang's deeds. So as long as they asked around, they would know everything. Moreover, they also asked about the origins of the Dragon God Sword and the Ice Dragon's Sacred Sword. They even found out about the grudges between Qin Feiyang and the two sovereign divine weapons. In the courtyard, the mermaid princess had already prepared the dishes. Where's Feiyang? Seeing that only the hall master and Elder Hua had returned, a trace of suspicion appeared on her face. He's comprehending the karma law. I don't think he'll be back in a short period of time. Elder Hua smiled. So it's like that. The mermaid princess nodded in realization and smiled. Then please take a seat. Thank you, but there's no need. We already know what we want to know. Qin Feiyang has also comprehended something, so we'll take our leave first. The Devil Hall Master smiled. But the dishes are already prepared. The mermaid princess was startled. I'm sorry. The exchange conference is about to begin. We still have to go back and prepare, so let's wait for the future. The Devil Hall Master smiled apologetically. All right. The mermaid princess nodded and smiled. Then I'll go find Sister Fire Lotus and send you out. Thank you for your trouble. The two of them were very polite to the mermaid princess. Soon, the mermaid princess brought Fire Lotus over. She pointed at Elder Hua and the Devil Hall Master and smiled. It's them. Greetings, seniors. Fire Lotus bowed. You're welcome. The Devil Hall Master waved his hand. Fire Lotus smiled and looked at Elder Hua. Senior Hua, I heard from Qin Dage that you seem to have comprehended the time law? Yes. Elder Hua nodded and asked. What's wrong? Fire Lotus's face lit up and immediately said. Then this junior has a presumptuous request. Can you stay in the Black Tortoise world for a few days and explain the mysteries of the Force Law to this junior? You have grasped the time array? Elder Hua was stunned. The Demon Hall's Hall Master was also stunned. Yes. Fire Lotus nodded and released the power of the time law. Although Frenzy had obtained many mysteries of the time law from the Hall of Famers, there were still many things that she couldn't understand. It really is the time law. Their eyes trembled. Karma law, space-time law, death law, life law. And now there was another strongest law, the time law. Just who were these people? Any one of these young people could be considered a top monster if they were to walk out of this world. Elder Hua, can you do it? Fire Lotus looked at him expectantly. Explaining in person would definitely be more detailed and easier to understand than Frenzy. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.